Let's war world and Atlas Thug. We here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast. We breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thug. We're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thug, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas Thug, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.
All right, what up, y'all?
Howdy, howdy.
Well, I don't know if y'all have heard, but there is a mist that rolled in, and it's giving everybody a upper respiratory infection or something like that, or so they say. And I'm suffering from it. I think it's just bad timing, to be honest with you. But conspiracy theory chaser here. If you've been on X, you've probably seen the posts, and I might have a couple that I'm going to show, just because it's kind of picked up some steam or whatever. But like I said, feeling a little bit today, so forgive me if my voice sounds weird, or if I gotta drink a little bit extra water or anything like that, or any Red Bull. Well, we got some updates coming with the whole MAGA civil war. What's going on with Elon Musk and Vivek and Donald Trump and even Mike Johnson, which is a separate issue, but all kind of breaking things. A little bit disappointing that what we've seen out of Donald Trump today. But something that we've said we're going to do, and something that I'll hold true to, is if Donald Trump messes up, as big a fan as I am, I'm going to call him out. We want the best out of these next 4 years. We don't want good enough. And so I see TNT Cycles is here in chat. What's up, TNT? It's good to see you. You got to join the Discord one of these days. We're all helping each other fix sinks today. I don't know what it is, but there's a couple of people dealing with sink issues right now. But people helped me out with my computer the other day. Now we're fixing sinks. So, anyways, we got a nice little community over there, and the link to the description, or to the Discord, is in the description. I'm Tyler, and you can find me at Worrell over on X. If you are watching on X, make sure you hit that repost button, and all that good stuff. You guys know what to do. It helps us reach a bigger audience. And then Alice, want to let people know where they can find you and stuff like that? We'll get into it.
Yeah. You can find me on YouTube at Atlas Thug. You can find me on X, as it says there on screen, at Atlas_Thug_. Yeah, and all the same calls to action: like, subscribe, share if you enjoy it, share if you hate it. Send it out to your family members. Have something to argue about. We appreciate the engagement.
Yeah, definitely. We're trying to get Atlas over 1,000 subs, which he's about 80-ish away. It's a nice milestone there for YouTube. And so if you're watching over there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help us out.
Yeah, and likewise, if anybody follows me, doesn't follow Worrell yet, make sure you join him, subscribe to him, watch his individual standalone videos. He covers a lot of different debate moments as well. Probably a lot of things you don't catch. I know he does a lot of good clip farming, going on shows like Piers Morgan and a lot of other different places like that you probably normally don't watch because you're normally not a fan of Piers Morgan, but you can find some good debate pieces on Worrell's channel.
Right. I even suffer through watching guys like David Pacman's channel and Destiny's channel every once in a while, and the Young Turks, things that most people on the right are going to gravitate away from. I suffer through it. I filter through for the best moments, and try to bring them to you, because we love watching the left get owned and have their hypocrisy thrown back in their face. Been trying to do 2 videos per day, but with the holidays and everything like that, it's been a rush. So I'm looking to start the year off strong. Here come January and get back on track with that. But I see Kenny said here, Trump won't be perfect. That's what makes it important to remind him and his people that MAGA and America First will be here after he's gone. This movement belongs to the people, not Trump. Yeah, 100% agree with that. I'll actually put that on screen. Then I see TNT Cycles commented that he said, man, he's been sick for 9 days now, chest congested, sinuses, cough so hard, head always hurts. Yeah, that's basically what I've been feeling. Started yesterday when I woke up, and I thought it was because some of you guys might know, but I'm having AC issues in the house, and since it's December, it's not really like a priority to get the AC fixed. I just open a window if it gets too hot in the house. Although today was a pretty warm day, and we ran little window units. But that's the thing. I have a window unit in the bedroom, and I've been sleeping with it the last couple nights on. And I thought, oh, maybe that's just what's messing with me. But I don't know. I don't know if that's the case now. I think it might actually cause a little bug somehow. But whatever. I hope you start feeling better there, TNT. Kenny followed up and said he has to be reminded that we can eliminate any leverage he has in the House and Senate. And if he screws us, he can be a lame duck president. Yeah, well, he's kind of a lame duck already since he's in his second term. But
right,
we can definitely make him look bad and have him lose all of his support if he wants to make more moves, kind of like what he did today, at least when he endorsed Mike Johnson to be Speaker of the House. And my favorite here, Thomas Massey made a post saying today, and here, I'll just I'll put that on screen. We're not really gonna jump into this one first. I think we're really gonna talk about the MAGA Civil War and what the updates are kind of going on with that. But
I had the Mike Johnson somewhere here. It's like towards the bottom of the further editions.
Yeah, I saw it in the list, so I went ahead and I put it in my title because I figure it's definitely worth talking about. But I got this post here from Mike Johnson, or from Thomas Massey, who we're big fans of around here. He said, I respect and support President Trump, but his endorsement of Mike Johnson is going to work out about as well as his endorsement of Speaker Paul Ryan. And that did not work out very well. But we've seen Johnson partner with the Democrats to send money to Ukraine, authorize spying on Americans, and blow the budget. And then he accompanied that with a picture of Trump saying, I support and endorse Paul Ryan. And then we have some folks in the comments where Elon Musk said, you might be right. Let's see how it goes. Popular Gunther Eagleman said, I still hate Johnson. Chicago Ray, stand firm on motion to vacate. He's going to try to exclude it. So you see the Judas. I mean, it might not be too far off the truth, to be honest with you, but we see dissent out of the right in the wake of Trump's endorsement of Mike Johnson. So we've also witnessed already once the power that X has, the power that the people on X has, our voices collectively together have an impact on Donald Trump's decision. He's already changed his mind once about one of his cabinet appointments. So, trust me, I believe that he's watching, he's paying attention to this, and he's paying attention to the whole conversation around the H-1B bill. If it's not him, it's his sons. I believe, Don Jr. and Eric are paying attention and looking around. And so hopefully, the people will be able to maintain their voices be heard in this manner. But I see House Leotardo said, I had a virus. It turned out to be pneumonia. Yeah, I'm hoping that's not the case here. I can't really afford to go down with anything too significant, that's for sure. Let's see here.
Yeah, pneumonia's not fun, especially depending on how old you are. For a lot of people, that ends up being a death sentence.
Yeah. Only a woman who gave birth without an epidural can understand what a man goes through when he has a cold. It's exactly the same.
Real.
Oh man. TNT said with less than 3 weeks left, Trump didn't have a choice. Nobody else would have pulled the votes quick enough, if not Johnson. That might be the case. I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, that's probably the harsh reality of it. But there's other people that we know well enough that could have jumped in and maybe made the case. I don't know. I threw Byron Donald's name out there on the last show, and I still would support that. And Jim Jordan was being talked about, which some people either love him or you kind of hate him. But as a dude that grew up wrestling, I like Jim Jordan.
Well, like I said on the last show too, there's somebody else who quoted Thomas Massey as like a bigger account, and I can't find it. I should have bookmarked it earlier. But like saying exactly what I had said on like the last show, which is it doesn't matter. You know, you say we get rid of Mike Johnson, you'll replace Mike Johnson with another Mike Johnson. That's
Right.
just like the nature of like what the position is. There's never really going to be someone that you put in this for that speaker slot that will appease one particular base. TNT is probably right on like the surface level of like, you know, it would require a bit of a news cycle turn to get someone else in there to get votes going. But that's also again like the reality of the fact of that position constantly just does these kind of compromises, IOUs. It's just again, there's really nothing that you can do with it. So to me, it's kind of like you just kind of accept that's a part of how the current system operates. Obviously, it's not like any kind of like it needs to be that way or stay that way. But again, it's just like a harsh reality of like, yeah, that's just the way it's going to be. You know, it's really kind of like you didn't really win much, you didn't really lose much. But it did suck to see like Trump kind of give a full headed steam of like of an endorsement. He could have just said like, I guess that's our guy. He didn't need to go because I saw the Truth Social post earlier. I don't have it on hand now. But he was like kind of like going overboard for like Mike Johnson. And it's like, dude, we just had the CR like 2 weeks ago. Like
Right.
Mike Johnson is in no way, shape, or form representative of your base, let alone like populist America as a whole. Is like, no, like this guy is an enemy. And especially when you realize the fact of like how much he was sponsoring in that bill alone, trying to push like, you know, what 1,500 page, might have been more than that at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
Roughly.
all of this when all those different like spending aspects of it too, all those little minor things. I think somebody pointed out like, you know, like almost $1 million for like what was it, a senior home for gay people, like all these things. It's like it's irrelevant when you look at places like North Carolina, like still in the aftermath of that hurricane. It's like
Right.
none of this is actually helping anyone like in the amount that it needs to or in the right direction. It's just all, you know, Congress foreplay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was making sure we had everything posted here in the discords and stuff like that. Let people know that we're live. But yeah, I got this one here pulled up. Well, I was gonna say Kenny made a good point. Johnson might have deals made with House members out of cycle, which this whole in cycle, out of cycle thing actually with the vote trading that goes on is a good point. And then TNT said Jordan and Byron are awesome, but the good guys won't get the votes until we primary a few people. Yeah, and then to your point there that you were just mentioning there, Atlas, that no speaker of no Republican speaker of the House should use Democrat votes to go against their own party, right? And that's what he did to get that last CR through. Was he used Democrat votes to get it through, and that's not how the Democrats play the game. It's certainly not how a Republican speaker should play the game one bit. So that was I mean, that's the biggest and most dangerous, most significant red flag of them all. You know, of all the things that Johnson might have had an issue with, or he might have had an issue with Mike Johnson over. That's the biggest one in my mind, was the fact that he used Democrat votes against his own party's will, essentially, to get a bill passed. So, not a good start for for this year.
Yeah, well, if you remember like the prediction from Massey, right, was like this is how they're going to vote on it. It's like everybody in this Congress knows that we are going to have a December vote because we're refusing to even move or put any kind of urgency behind doing this kind of single bill voting process.
Right,
And
Massey
so I
said
see
that in
House in there.
September.
We'll go ahead.
I just said right. Massey said that in September. He warned 3 months ahead of time that they
Yeah.
were going to wait to the last minute and use, the leverage. You can either vote on this and go home with your family, or you can spend the holidays in DC, and that's exactly what they did.
Right. Well, I was just gonna pick up on with House there. There's 38 Freedom Caucus members, MTG, Thomas Massey, and more. Um, then I think he's right. Right, we got a primary and get some of these rhinos out. But even then, with 38 Freedom Caucus members there, like how many people were banging on the drum to get some of these bills signed outside of Thomas Massey?
Hmm.
None to my recollection. And it just shows like there's just a way that like Congress has kind of fallen into operating. I know MTG did a lot of good work in her early initial periods because of how many feathers she ruffled in, calling people into votes who normally weren't showing up. And she kind of shined a light on just how little work was being done.
Right.
But
She
it
was
seems
mad
like,
that first.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, right. She was mad that first time around. They didn't put her on any uh projects or whatever. They have like their
Yeah, the
little team
subcommittees.
subcommittees. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the exact word. And so she just sat around in the chambers and basically called people to roll call votes, which was good. It forced people to come in and actually vote rather than mailing it in. But now that I think she's gotten busier with the subcommittees that she has been on, her whole deal has kind of been rearranged essentially.
Yeah. Well, part of what I think is a little irritating is this has been a process that's been happening. I think Thomas Massey said that we kind of pushed these omnibus CRs through for like the last 7 or 8 years. Could be longer than that. It just seems to be like it wasn't even really a prediction. It was like we're going to do this again because people are just lazy, and this is a way that you can get a lot of deals done at one moment with like that emotional kind of leverage of, well, if you just push it through, no matter what, you can go see your family for Christmas. It's it is ultimately defeating because it's just like there is a tried and true just like methodology of the way that Congress operates. It kind of makes me think of how often we'll see these clips of Congress members like, yelling and screaming at each other. And they're like, they bringing up, their whiteboards. And it's like, remember when you said this and like this, and like nothing happens from it. You get to these points where it's like, at a certain time, it's like, how many times am I going to see Chip Roy say things that I agree with, and then like nothing ever come of it? How many times? And you would think too, with the amount of like people we have in there now. And again, I will admit there's a lot of rhinos in there too. So people who got voted in under the Republican banner who aren't truly going to be voting in our actual interests. But I think that ultimately you get to these points where people are so disenfranchised, so disinterested in all of the excuses that they're willing to give and hand out. But at the same time, then also see like today, Ukraine was given $2.5 billion more dollars.
Good.
And I think people kind of get their breaking points. I think I do as well. I think this is actually, ties into a little bit of the mega kind of civil war we're seeing. People are just like they've had it. It's like there's no more pitter patter, like going back and forth and like, well, maybe we should like do this. You have people calling for like unity already. And I think the bigger point here too is, like we got Trump in. That was the point. And now we're moving on to like actually arguing like the smaller, like the nitpicking and like the smaller side arguments to kind of really hash out like the direction we want to go. And so if what better time to kind of argue this out if not right now? Because that was the argument going in was like, let's not break up the mega base. We need to have unity. We need to beat the Dems. It's too big to rig, and that's fine. Pragmatic, 100%. But now we're after that. It's like Trump's going to get in, right? Unless there's some kind of crazy, like non peaceful transfer of power. They try to pull some garbage like that.
Right.
But other than that, it's like we should be expecting Trump to get in, and we should be making our voices most heard because now there's like no competition barrier here with like the Democrats, right? It's just like, will the person we elected listen to us or will he not? And like there's no barrier anymore. And so I think a lot of this boils down to the fact that if we continually try to push like, well, this is why you're not being heard, and this is why we're not doing things in your best interest, and this is why you have to accept this like super lukewarm speaker, everything that kind of
Mhm.
falls under that umbrella, people are like, dude, this is, they're going to start reaching out. And this is why I think you see a lot more kind of like radical shifting with the Overton window. You had a lot of leftists who moved kind of into the middle, Overton window getting stretched out because of how far, the political spectrum has went. But I
Yeah.
think that's why you're going to see the mega base, who has been naturally kind of leaning a bit more leftward than where the conservative base normally would be. Um, retreating back into a more conservative position because they're like, okay, like we want what we want. It's like we're not going to play pretend anymore. And I think that's a good thing and a bad thing for a few reasons, but I think it's ultimately going to be a net positive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was a good point. I liked what you said there when you were talking about this is the time to hash these things out. It's post-election and it's pre-inauguration, so it's kind of like we have this lull here to try to work out some of the kinks in the armor, essentially, and get everything right and aligned. And this is also an important time while Trump's making his cabinet picks and backing people going into his term and stuff like that. We don't just sit there and accept the status quo or Trump's version of the status quo. We want to make sure that uh, we speak out. And I see that House Leotardo said we have 40 out of 229 Republican seats. Our side is outnumbered. That's true, but we do
Right.
have more Republicans than Democrats, and Trump is the leader. I mean, he's the president. He's not really leader of the House or whatever, but I mean, hopefully, we just don't see a repeat of his first term where the Republicans basically, I'll use a Tim Pool phrase, but they're just basically like, hold up, slow down there, Democrats, and they're
Yeah.
not really pushing any of their agenda forward. Any of the people that they're supposed to represent pushing back, or there is just a soft resistance to the Democrat front that's pushing their agenda all the time. So it'd be nice to see some of this pushback essentially out of the Republicans, even though we are outnumbered, which is totally unfortunate. But the numbers are growing. We did lose Matt Gaetz in this process, which is a bummer. And this is where I'm going to bring up a post from him. Excuse me. Trump endorsing Johnson is, quote, art of the deal level practicality. We could never have held. Excuse me. We could never have held up McCarthy 2 years ago for concessions if a Trump certification hung in the balance. Now it does. We were able to hold up McCarthy because Republican voters weren't all that eager to see us getting back to being Biden's bitch, which Kevin ultimately did anyways. The resistance to Speaker Johnson is now futile. Let's work to make him the best version of himself, which was more like the 2023 vintage of Mike. And so this is just kind of disappointing to me, honestly. He makes a point, but I just don't want to see Matt Gaetz saying that resistance to Speaker Johnson is futile, right?
Right.
That's just bad form out of somebody that's coming from the Freedom Caucus, essentially, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
what it's called, and just like I know Speaker Johnson is kind of him being in there is pretty much directly related to Matt Gaetz' ousting of Kevin McCarthy. And I would say that Speaker Johnson might be better than Kevin McCarthy. The fact that Mike Johnson has been hanging out, in Trump's posse and rubbing shoulders with him and everything like that. Maybe he's getting a taste of the good life, and he's realizing that it's in his best interest, his career's best interest, to go along with Trump type things. But what we saw in that CR was bad news, was a bad signal, was a bad start. And even though Trump tried to, that's the thing about it. If Trump would have wholeheartedly come out and just said, "Nah, shut the government down," like I wanted it to, I would like to have seen Mike Johnson's reaction. Instead, he basically, what Trump was like, "Well, the second version is good enough. Let's get it through." And that's where I kind of coined the term, "Good enough is not going to cut it this time. We want the best. We don't want good enough. We're not trying to cut deals. We're sick of that bullshit. We want the best." And the Republican voters set a mandate for Trump for nothing less.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing here though with what TNT is saying, to pick back on one of his arguments here, saying, right now would be futile. What if Hakeem Jeffries won with 1 or 2 rhino votes to be speaker? I'd say go ahead. The difference between Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson is very minimal. If anything, it may be more beneficial because then Hakeem Jeffries on the surface would obviously be a lot more opposed, just in terms of like red versus blue. But I do agree here with World where you don't like to see your politicians allude to the fact that or telling their base like not to do something because it's like you're not going to get the result, you know. And in House Leotardo says we have 40 out of 229 seats, and you got to think too, like how many of those seats that aren't in the Freedom Caucus were also, they got the knighting from Donald Trump, right? Like Donald Trump said, this person in this race, they got my support, and they're not in the Freedom Caucus. A lot of this does go back to like very kind of limp wrist, very poor, weak-handed. And a lot of it's on us too. A lot of it's on us as voters. A lot of people like just voting because the guy got, you know, Trump likes him, and that's maybe not even the best way to say that this might have been the best person in the race, or maybe there are other people who would have otherwise been in the Freedom Caucus, but weren't because he got primaried by whoever Donald Trump said was the guy to get put in. Um, I wish I could say I think the Freedom Caucus will grow. I hope it does. And I'm
Certainly
not trying
do.
to be very blackpilling, but I just don't see it. The way that the politics is currently ran, and it's also not just a statement on the system. Um, there is just still a large problem with the fact that people don't do enough research before they make their choices about voting. When it comes to like informed decisions, and a lot of this does come down to the fact of like the way that things are kind of separated too with the urban versus rural districting, and the way that kind of voting is even done in general. There's just a lot of issues overall, and I think we're kind of victims of the way that it's all set up. Not proposing that there's a solution to it, but just saying, you tie in the fact that your average voter votes with very little information, with also the fact that the majority of these people lie just to get into office in the first place. It's like
Yeah.
it's not going to be a good mixture of getting the best people in the positions they need to be in. And so it's just
Right.
an unfortunate reality.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with how much money these folks can raise with their campaigns and stuff like that. The more ads, the more votes, and it's kind of just a harsh reality. It's not really the best person; it's the person that can raise the most money. But TNT Cycles did say confirmations first, and I get that, and that's I think what Matt Gaetz is trying to say. I highlighted this part. We could never have held McCarthy for 2 years. We could have never held McCarthy up 2 years ago for concessions. If a Trump certification hung in the balance, now it does. So essentially, the position I believe that he's trying to say here is um, he's acting like Trump might have a hard time being certified. And so we got to take Mike Johnson, essentially, you know what I mean? Just because uh,
Well,
how he compared it to McCarthy, right? He wouldn't have been able to do the same thing 2 years ago if it was the other thing. So, I mean, I
yeah,
kind of get that, and we do still got to get Trump through or whatever. But I mean, the people voted. Like, if they don't certify him and they try some stuff, it's gonna look really bad on the Democratic Party, and it's not really gonna hurt the Republicans unless they go along with
right.
it. And then your point, I would say that you said that you don't necessarily know if the Freedom Caucus is going to grow. I think it will. It's just baby steps, and I understand like everybody wants everything fixed overnight, but the fact that we have 38 to 40 people is a good sign because I think that's the most we've ever had. And
Well, yeah, it
so,
has grown. I mean, it went from like what, like 11 during that McCarthy like kind of flip, and now we are kind of sitting at like 38, 40. Although it's
mhm,
like a lot of those who kind of recently have joined, I like need a bit more vetting, aren't like as vocal or as well known as the early group. So it
right,
has
they're
grown.
the freshmen or whatever, however they call it. And so it's like, as we see more of these old timers, the lifelong politicians retire and die off because that's the only way they retire, right? But as we see more of them move out, hopefully we get more America First type people, um, Freedom Caucus types in there to replace them.
Well, I think there's two arguments here, right?
Oh,
One
House
would be
Leopardo
like
said we lost 6 seats. Do you mean like we had six more Freedom Caucus than we have right now? I thought the number was like 18 before, and now that it's up to around 40.
well, I was just gonna say, there's two arguments here, right? There's the argument of the
Yeah, we need a woman to
confirmations
be confirmed.
of like the cabinet picks, and then you have the argument of the certification for Trump. Obviously, if they were to try something and like not certify the election with Trump, I mean, we would end up in a situation similar to what we had during January 6th. I think that that is somewhere where it's like I just like the Democrats can try something, man. But if we're willing to sit back as a country one more time and watch people like that literally rip out in the fabric and roots of what everyone voted here and deny an actual like election that we had and we made too big to rig, then that's one thing. The confirmations though, it was early floated that he would do recess appointments, because he was like, oh, like I don't care what they're going to try to do.
Right.
And the reality is we're not going to get them. Doing all of this is what I mean by like this is like kind of like the lie that they play, like Congress plays to you, which is like we need to do these very performative gestures with Democrats because how else are we going to get our confirmations? And it's like we literally have multiple ways that Donald Trump can make these appointments and get these confirmations in without having to. We can entirely bypass the system, and this goes back to the argument of like trying to play fair with people who literally hate you and are like flipping the table when you're trying to play Monopoly. It's like there's no
Yeah.
point. It's kind of it like to me, it's like we've done this so many times. It's like we got to just move out of this mold. Like these people are awful people. I would call most of them evil. And the reason why Trump doesn't want to move the recess appointments is because he fears how the New York Times is going to talk about him when they start giving him like the dictator. All these people are like, look, he dismissed Congress for his appointments. And it's like, yeah, good. Get these people out of there. You don't deserve a say. You need, X, Y, and Z, put this person in. And even if he didn't do that actual specific action, there's other loopholes where you can put somebody and appoint them as an acting AG. So even if Matt Gaetz was not to be appointed as the attorney general, Trump can nominate him for a temporary period for an acting AG, and he could continually do it over and over again. There's multiple ways to bypass this system. That's why it's just ultimately unfortunate to get to these points where like your politicians say, well, it's the only way we can do it. And if Trump says it, that's how we have to do it. And it's like, nah, it's like I entirely disagree. It's like I wish Trump was the dictator that they said he was, because maybe we would be able to see some rightful change. But again, it falls back to something I picked up from Tim Pool a while ago, which is like, here we are, we're playing chess and trying to move our piece one at a time. And the guy across from us is like, I win. And you're like, what are you
Mhm.
talking about? You didn't even move a piece. And he's like, I just win. And you owe me money and I'm calling the 911 on you. And it's like, well, what is happening right now? But this is why it's like, to me, it falls on deaf ears. It's like, I don't care what any of these politicians are saying. It's like, I know what's on the books. I know the way we can act it. They even floated it in the beginning, which I was imagining was an A/B test to get the kind of like idea of how people would feel about it. And I think most of the base was like, yeah, recess appointments. So the only real reasoning that he kind of stepped away from any of that was because he was like, well, the New York Times may call me a dictator in the news. And it's
Mm.
like, that's what they've been doing for 8 straight years, dude.
Right.
Just like get over it and do what you think is in the best interest of the people who voted for you.
Yeah.
And
Don't
that's where
worry
I'm at
about.
with it.
Yeah. Don't worry about being loved by the people that have declared they hate you for 8 years. You know what I mean? Don't worry about their judgment.
Right.
Worry about the judgment of God and then the people that actually elected you. Right. In that order.
Exactly. Yeah.
But House Leotardo, thanks for following up. There was 45 members in 2022, so we did lose five seats, 7 seats, 5 seats, I'd probably say, down to 40. I know you said 38 plus Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey, but I kind of lumped them in as well. Still, that is a bummer. I thought it was definitely we had gained. So I see Chris said, "Hey, Beard 1 and Beard 2." I'm not going to
What's
repeat
going
what
on, Chris?
TNT said. I don't know who Goldilocks would be here. He said Goldilocks and the
Next to
Three
the 3
Beards.
beards. That's funny. Yeah, not me. Not me.
But
I'm bold.
yeah, I guess I don't know. It's not really gold, but whatever. It's so long. It'll like pinch it down whenever I'm sleeping and stuff. I gotta do something about it. But
That's fine.
let's see here. Speaker Johnson posted in response to Donald Trump, and this is where Donald Trump actually posted on Truth Social. We are a party of common sense. Here, let me actually maybe I made it smaller. Y'all just gonna have to trust me. I can't get it to go out from
That's
behind
funny.
it. We are a party of common sense. A primary reason that we won in a landslide. The significant and historic presidential. Sorry, I can't read. I'm making myself laugh. The magnificent and historic presidential election of 2024. all 7 swing states, 213 electoral college votes, and the popular vote by millions of voters. Despite large-scale voter fraud taking place in numerous states, including California, where votes are ridiculously still being counted or under review, all won with ease, calm, and professionalism. Republicans are being praised for having run a legendary campaign. Democrats are being excoriated for their effort, having wasted $2.5 billion, much of it unaccounted for, with some being used to illegally buy endorsements. 11 million to Beyonce, who never sang a song, 2 million to Oprah. I heard it was 2.5 million from today from Bill O'Reilly, but I'm not sure what that number actually is. And even 500,000 to Reverend Al. Yeah. What's his name? Al Sharpton got 500 grand, and then he went on MSNBC, and they didn't even know that he had been paid. And basically, well, you'll have to just, it's coming up in my video that I'm about to post after we, I got to finish up the thumbnail after we're live, but be on the lookout for that, because Bill O'Reilly rips that whole thing apart. It's really good because he does it in on News Nation, where Cuomo and Stephen A. Smith kind of reside. But a professional con man, Reverend Al, a professional con man and instigator who agrees to interview their star-spangled candidates, Kamala and Joe. We ran a flawless campaign, having spent far less with lots of money left over. They ran a very expensive sinking ship, embracing DOJ and FBI weaponization against the political opponent, me. But it didn't work. It was a disaster. Let's not blow this great opportunity which we have been given. The American people need immediate relief from all the destructive policies of the last administration. Speaker Johnson is a good, hardworking, religious man. He will do the right thing and will continue to win. Mike has my complete and total endorsement, MAGA. And then you have Mike Johnson basically commenting on that, saying, "Thank you, President Trump. I'm honored and humbled by your support, as always. Together, we will quickly deliver on your America First agenda and usher in a new golden age for America, of America. The American people demand and deserve that we waste no time. Let's get to work." And so, of course, he's happily going to accept it. They've been kind of buddy lately. So I don't know if it turns out to be a Paul Ryan type thing, man, we're screwed, because I don't think that the caveat is in place yet, like what Matt Gaetz was able to use with one vote of no confidence, and Kevin McCarthy was able to oust him, right? I don't know if it's going to be that easy.
Yeah, again, I try not to be a big black pill giver, but I think that's the kind of sentiment I think everyone's kind of getting right now. You look at this on top of the ongoing H-1B visa debate, the immigration. We're kind of deteriorating now. The schism's kind of completely formed, really. I think Jack Posobiec and Steve Bannon and all their acolytes have kind of stepped to one side, kind of aligning with the MAGA base. So now we have like woke light versus woke right. That's what everyone's kind of calling and throwing names at each other. It's wild too, because I think even Tim Pool kind of stepped out and said people calling portions of the right the woke right is retarded. He said something along the lines of like, you're trying to shove a puzzle piece where it don't fit. And so we think we're seeing a lot of these kind of like bad actors overall in the space. I think it really kind of like hurt people because they weren't expecting it to come so rapidly from Elon Musk. Then I see you have that even from the quartering there. We'll get into the PBD thing too, because I thought that was pretty enlightening from on his perspective. And there's a real kind of hard line, and I'm glad we're finally getting a hard line drawn in the sand for where people are on this issue. But again, the schism's not going away. There's going to be like no unity anymore. It's like the unity was for the purpose of getting Trump in. And so I'm glad to kind of like go through a lot of these different things that we have lined up here, especially like some of the censorship that we didn't cover from last episode as well, that we wanted to get into regarding this whole issue overall. But you have like, again, like Jack Posobiec, Steve Bannon, Orrin McIntyre, Jeff Younger, Eric Weinstein too. Jimmy Dore has even aligned closer to the MAGA base, against like the Elon and Vivek positioning. And I think, what we're seeing in real time was like a possible rug pull on the American people, or rather not the American people, but the MAGA base in general, in doing so, kind of like obfuscating the reality of what's going on. And I even had a good discussion, or rather short discussion, with somebody who's in our Discord on one of my posts, talking about one of the most disappointing things was to see Elon outright lie about the H-1B visas. And that's why, and House Leotardo's even showing up here too. People went to work on this issue. And that's what happens when you build up a base that's so terminally online and who's so ready and willing to go against like this narrative that's been drawn out. And there's so many kind of like internet psychological operations happening too. It's like I'm just glad. I'm thoroughly kind of glad that we're seeing the pushback here, especially because I'm like, this is something I've said was going to happen for quite some time, just waiting for it to occur. I always thought again that it was going to happen along the lines of the Christian conservatism versus Christless conservatism. Although some of those patterns in the rhetoric is there, it's really going to be happening on the immigration debate, and I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Um, People kind of even get woke up too, because obviously a lot of people don't realize even here how much like I'm aligned with people like that are like Nick Fuentes or Myron Gaines, people that fall under that category. I'm like a very, very right individual, I would be very far right even by MAGA standards. And then you see people like Owen Schroyer and 9mm SMG and like Cassandra Fairbanks and people of that color and like Laura Loomer, who are like definitely less like far right than what I would deem myself. But then here they are getting censored online for the pushback they got. Multiple accounts being suspended over this issue entirely too. People who were pointing out David Sachs had tried to. It was a comment from almost like 10 years ago where he what was it called? Yeah, he tried getting people to commit wire fraud by the way that they were using PayPal with remittance and regarding this issue too. Hopefully I saved some of that in there as well, but just a wild kind of like development, and it's happening on all sides. The unfortunate thing though, and see what Phil is saying here, this is what I disagree with. Is like Trump is not the end all be all. Like I don't want to be ruled by somebody who has like very little loyalty and shows continually over time that he's more, concerned with the way that people view him. It goes back to the fact of you don't really have to worry about Trump doing things as long as it's like going to bolster his ego, but that also hurts the base too. That goes back to like the recess appointments as well. This is somebody who, instead of doing what should be the right thing and is the right thing to do with the recess appointments, he looked at it and was like, well, I'd rather not be called bad names online, and I want people to love me and my reputation. So it's better than somebody who's willing to do things and knowing they're going to be evil, no matter what the reputation damages may be. But I think that we should be eating ourselves. You say it's disgusting, but I also find it insane that we have gotten to a point where conservatives got to the point where they wanted to abandon outright things like abortion. They considered it dead in the water. And we've reached stories with like Jeff Younger, where you have now an individual who got his essentially it can't go to the states, right? You have an issue where this Texas state government gave an issue, or a ruling rather. They move over to California. He has no rights now to see his children. They're getting trans in another state. There's all these refugee states in this country for people who want to trans their kids. But there's no refugee state for anyone to move to, what's the right word? There's no refugee states for somebody who's like trying to escape California and say, hey, my wife tried to do this, or my husband tried to trans our kids. Like, I need to be moved here. Please don't extradite me back to California, so they continue these processes. And he's done right by us, but it's not a left-wing talking point. The wild thing here is, like you, and I think we talked about this last time, we have somebody, and I think you're a pretty good exemplary point of that too, of a people who they abdicate almost all of their positioning and interest into one individual, which would be Trump. And I think as much as Trump's done good for us, you don't just listen to Trump because Trump said something. You don't abdicate your critical thinking ability because Trump might have said something otherwise. You don't abdicate what you think or would vote on an issue because Trump green-lighted it. This goes to a whole different aspect of you should always have your own interests in mind. You should vote for your own interests. And I think a lot of people have been pointing this out too. There's no reason to even care that the Republicans won if they're going to institute Democratic agenda or the Democrats' agenda. And so, and I think, and the reason why I feel like picking on you, Phil, is you exemplify a lot of people who I heavily disagree with in this space entirely. And it's not to pick on you singularly, because I think, I don't think you're alone at all in that. It's just a lot of people who are blindly just like, because Trump's doing something, we just have to do it because Trump is doing it. And I just don't think that's the way to go. This whole union thing, when we've constantly been in the stabbed in the back. And again, it's to look at me and say, like, I don't feel almost and ideologically aligned with anything Trump's doing right now. So to tell me and a lot of other people who feel the same, to be like, well, he did things in the past that we good. It's like, no, I don't care what he did in the past. I care what he's doing like right now and how he's going to move forward with that too. And I think you're in the majority though, Phil. I think a lot of people who think like that are in the majority, which is why I think it's been such a rough point with a lot of people. It's because a lot of people kind of bit their tongues, similar like I did, because it was like, Trump's obviously better than Kamala. This is the direction we have to go because it's just the most pragmatically one that makes sense. But now it's getting to a point where it's like, if you continually keep slapping me every time I'm trying to say, hey, like, let's stop doing this, like, let's stop doing things just because Trump said it. It's like you reach a point where it's like, okay, like now we're no longer aligned. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny. I tend to agree with Phil a lot more. I've been thinking about what he said about in the last show where he was talking about, he's kind of just this wait and see, which I do believe we should be having the discussions now. But I still am myself in this wait and see kind of period because Trump is ultimately, and it's to Phil's point that he said we should be grateful someone like Trump came into office because without Trump, he didn't have to do this. He's lost hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion, being president. And now, when he finishes this 4 years, 12 years of his life, of his golden years, where he could have just been chilling, playing golf, hanging out with his kids and his grandkids and everything like that. And so
Right.
I'm super grateful for Trump for being our bull in the China shop. But and I did kind of, in assessing the whole scenario, tend to lean towards the wait and see, hope for the best. But I still, my caveat to that is we have to demand the best. So I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know if he's necessarily, and he says he's not a shill for Trump. And he also, Phil also said if he messes up, he'll hear it. And so I think,
Yeah, well, that's the point, right? This is me saying I think Trump's messing up right now.
yeah,
And then this is the base saying, no, we have to go along. This is the point, right? It's like, that's the whole idea of me being like, okay, I've drawn a hard line. I've like give Trump credit where it's due. Same thing with TNT. But now it's like, okay, like I'm like, me personally is like, I'm beyond the point of like wait and see. He says you can't say Trump worries about what people think when not give him credit for doing things that we think. And that's what I said. Like I've said, he's done things in the past. That's great. But now we're looking at Matt Gaetz is entirely outside of the whole realm of politics. And why is that? And that's because, again, Trump floated recess appointments and chose not to move forward with them. There's no other reason for Matt Gaetz to be sitting outside the realm of politics. It's just that the leader that we picked is choosing to abide by a system and play by the rules with not only just people who hate us and hate America, but people who have done evil things, all of the lying that's gone on. You have the intel agencies are entirely subverted. And here we are still trying to play by rules when we don't even have a slight grasp of the system that's taking control of things. That's why it's like I'm letting my voice heard right now because I think that's the right thing to do. I'm doing things because it's like in my and as well as my family's, and I think many people's interest to do so too. House Guitardo saying Trump isn't Jesus. I think that's another great point. Like, where is the Christianity in a lot of this too? If anything, most Christians have been told to take a back seat in a lot of this as well. And that's another harsh point to come to reality with, is most of the MAGA base has adopted classical liberal values. So we've only kind of absorbed recently together just because we know it's much better than the entirely insane progressive left who would go so far as to say, hey, we should be able to trans kids. Now, I think that's something not only just Christians, but classical liberals can look at and say, hey, like Like that's definitely a little bit too far. And so classical liberals will go to the point of being like, well, as long as they're 18, like I think we'll be okay, just not kids. Where Christian conservatives would be like, I don't care if they're 18, like that shouldn't be allowed at all, but we can at least agree on the fact that it shouldn't happen to kids. And that's where you find where you agree and you move forward. And then I'm not trying to say anyone's a show. I'm just saying that there's a majority position of always giving Trump the benefit of the doubt. I think that's probably the better way to put it. And I think that that's fine. That's most people's positions. I'm actually just saying that's the majority of it. So when there's any kind of dissent, people say we need to have loyalty. And then again, see right here with Phil, I think that's a great point there too. If you go full Christianity, you will lose half the base. Common sense. Not everyone is hard Christian conservative. Get used to that fact. And this is the point. This is where we draw the hard line, right? This is why I would separate and go away from MAGA because it doesn't represent me at all. If the whole point of like why I do what I do and the reason why I argue the way that I do is because that is my position. So why would I expect to agree with you on a lot of things when you say, when you say things like that, don't do it, right? You're saying it's common sense. Not get used to the idea that what I'm saying is futile. Same way that Matt Gaetz just said, put something forward and said, hey, that's entirely futile. Like, don't do that. Well, like, I don't accept that. And a lot of Christian conservatives don't accept that. A lot of Christian nationalists don't accept that. And then we refuse it. And if anything, it's like the more constitutional point of like saying, like, you're holding the position that we should be closer to where we are in modernity, where I'm saying I'd rather be closer to where we were when the Constitution was first formed. This was a Christian nation. And so there's so many kind of nuances you can throw in there too. And this is why I think the infighting will continue. Like these are all hardline positions that are not going to change. You're not going to get people who have recently moved into the Christian nationalist position to go, you know what, we should have less God when there's already enough, like we've already been overran. And it goes with other more principles too, right? Where it's not like having no religion in government. It's the fact of like, which religion will it be? You see it with we get rid of the 10 commandments and everything else. You move that out of the schools, you move that out of churches. And what do you get, right? We get rainbow flags. There's more like rainbow flags in the White House lawn than there even are American flags. There's so many positions that can move here, and I know it bothers people, but it's something that's like I'm unwilling to back away from. I just wanted to make the point that I think that you're in the majority position. I think and same with World. I think World agrees with you too. I think that is the majority of the MAGA base. That's where they are. And so that's why I think for myself, when I feel these specific ways, is why it is, what's the right word? That's why it's imperative that I continue to hold these positions. Because if I compromise and then move into it, it's like, well, then I'm sacrificing all these values for a lot of things that I don't agree with. So it just doesn't make sense for myself and a lot of people who agree with that to do that.
Yeah, well, it's funny is I agree with both of you in a way, and I agree with Phil here too. He says, I'd love nothing more than to be a Christian nation once again. I fear losing the country though. We can make steps that way. All at once would kill us as a movement, and that's pretty much where I'm at as well. Hopefully, we can continue to take baby steps in the right direction. It appears to me that over the last year and a half, there's been how do I say it? There's been, I don't want to call it a full on revival, but I think there's been a lot more people finding Christ in the face of all the negative just shit that we're seeing from this DEI obsessed society.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're tired of living their lives catering to the fringe, and just to simplify things, they're going back to the basics, which is a Christian base, based in God and in God and Jesus specifically. And so yeah, I do agree that with you in that I would love to see back to the way that the country was founded, essentially with a Christian society, essentially. You know what I mean? I think that would fix a lot of the problems we have in the education system, and that's related to this H-1B thing. Vivek or Elon or whatever was basically saying that we're all stupid, and I think Vivek said something about we're more obsessed with sleepovers than we are with arithmetic or something to that effect, and that's kind of I don't agree with that at all. But the underlying point that I think he was making, or at least that I got from it, was that there's huge issues within the education system. So if we're able to fix the education system, we're able to bring God and Jesus back into it openly and have teachers that are more willing to teach Christian principles, which, you know, a lot of our laws and everything are still revolve around Christian based society. You know what I mean? It
Right.
kind of all come down from the Ten Commandments. We've covered that many times on the channel as well. But uh, and then to Phil's point is if we did it all at once, we would lose half our base, would never win an election again. So there's
Right.
you know, we got to continually pray about it. We got to pray for our leaders. We got to pray for our, you know, everything like that. But if we can continue this track that we're on, that I've, you know, I mentioned the last year and a half, I feel like it's been more of a revival type scenario that maybe we will slowly start, because we can't just start taking things back before we actually turn the boat around. You know what I mean? We can't just throw the boat in reverse. So we got to
Right.
like turn this around. We got to make fringe crazy things crazy again. You know what I mean? It's not cool to be to try to make your kids gay or make your kids trans. It's not cool to you know, I'm gonna say it's not really cool to be gay. I mean, it was
Right.
one of those things growing up. I mean, people might not agree, and YouTube might not like me saying that, but it's just the reality of it. I mean, in God's eyes, it's a sin, and then of course, if you tell them that it's a sin, then you become some bigot or whatever, and you can't be afraid of the labels they're going to put on
Right.
you. They hate you anyways, and you know, you just got to speak the truth. And so, um, and that's just the way the truth is. I mean, just look at how the slippery slope with the word marriage, you know, where that led to. You know, marriage
Right.
was literally defined in the Bible as a union between a man and a woman in the eyes of God or in the face of God, you know, in God's presence or whatever. And they wanted to get legal benefits that a married couple has, as the government recognized marriage, but they didn't recognize like civil unions in the same light. But then they wanted to use the phrase marriage, and then, you know, that kind of started this version of the slippery slope with the LGBTQ that we're into now, because
Yeah. We just
anything
want to be
backed by the
married to
Democrats. What's that?
we want to be married to we want to be dog genders to we
Yeah,
should make your kids dog genders. You know, that happened over a period of like 10 years. Yeah,
right. So
barely even that.
yeah, and just to finish what I was saying, there's just the LGBTQ has been adopted, like, you know, the movement has been adopted by the Democratic Party essentially, and anything the Democrat Party backs, they constantly push to take ground, and you know, that's the result of the slippery slope essentially. Let's see here. Kenny said, I would never want a teacher telling my kid anything about God. More people need to build their relationships with God at home through family and not some crappy school. But okay, so you might not want a teacher to, I mean, which I completely disagree with that, to be honest with you. But
Right.
they're telling your kid everything else, but they're not allowed to speak about God, right? They can't say, okay, we're gonna pray now. Somebody just got hurt, we're gonna pray for them. Here, we're gonna take 10 minutes to read out of your Bible today. You know, part of the curriculum essentially, but you know, they can't do that, but they can fly a BLM flag, they can fly a rainbow flag, and they can sit there and tell you about they want you they can come in and they can put a picture of their gay lover on their desk
Yeah.
and 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 talk
I
about, you
hope
know,
the
if it's
kids
a
ask
man's
me about it.
perspective, they can set, you know, have their husband from a man's perspective, or their wife from a woman's perspective, their gay lover picture on the desk, and there's nothing, you know, there's nothing countering that. And so the only way you can counter it is by letting the you know, the church back into schools. Essentially, it wasn't
Right.
they've exploited that law, the separation of church and state, into something that it isn't. And I mean, yeah, they should, Kenny, they should just stick to schooling. They should stick to, you know, reading, grammar. I mean, so many of these kids are graduating high school literally illiterate, right? They push them on to the next class. They don't care about these kids at all. And
Yep.
that's, you know, I've talked about this before, but I know a college professor who told me 100% for a fact that one of the greatest kick returners in the NFL is completely illiterate. The dude has a college diploma.
Right.
Can't read a word. Like, maybe he can read a word, but so I mean, and if we can't allow teachers to have prayer time, to teach about a book in the Bible or a story in the Bible, which there's lots of things to learn from, we're doomed to send every kid to a pride parade at some point. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I think a side point with that too. Forgive me. It's like obviously like you don't even need to. It's not even like it's a an either or. It's more so of like moving back to what was originally, obviously the first place and like how things originally used to be, but more so it's like you'll still have math and science and history and all those classes. It's just like when you walk into the school, it's not going to be a rainbow flag and like gay lovers association like on the bulletin board. It'll be like the Ten Commandments. And when they don't even think they pledge allegiance to the flag anymore, let alone like do anything with like small prayer time. It'll
Mhm.
just be more so that it's like instead of honoring like gay people in place of that, like why don't we honor like what's right in God? And not to say like, that takes like what, like 2 or 3 minutes out of like a lesson plan, and then you move on to be like, okay, in algebra 2, we do this. And
Mhm.
so it's more so like the surface level kind of side, that kind of like
Well, there
constant
was
kind
a
of reflection while kids are around it, right? They'll be sitting in the classroom instead of the rainbow flag and like what you said, like the teacher's gay lover. It'll be like the Ten Commandments are on the wall. Like so when the
Mhm.
kids bored and they're like looking around, like that's what they see. They see kind of the reflections of that. It's not
Mhm.
to say like you go back into school and it's like, and now we're going to learn in the book of Jonah and like forget science. We're going to go and do this. It's like those things can also be hand in hand. It's just a matter of like which one's going to be heralded and praised versus which one won't be.
Right, which one's blocked and which one's allowed. I mean, look at there was a coach a few years back that was praying with the football team, and I think the dude got fired for it. I mean, what a
Right.
ridiculous thing to get fired for in the face of the other religions that are allowed, the religion of the LGBTQ, right? Plus.
Right. I do want to say too, I appreciate
Yeah,
Phil commenting in. I don't want to make you feel again, I think I said this last time. I don't make anybody feel singled out. And like I know I'm like in the minority position, but I argue like pretty heavy handedly. So I don't want to make anybody feel like unwelcome either. I appreciate you being here as well too. I actually I enjoy probably arguing with people more than I enjoy agreeing with them. This is kind of
yeah,
like the way I've kind of like oriented myself in the political discourse.
yeah.
But I think it's good to have these discussions.
I'm right there kind of with you too. I enjoy arguing with people over stuff like
Yeah.
this. That's what my group chat, we had to separate the group chat from the fantasy football. It's like, all right, go talk politics over in the other one. 'Cause we want the hunting and the fantasy football stuff to be in this one. So we had to
Yeah.
separate it. It's all the same people, but we just keep the topics separated, but they both stay heavily active. But
Right.
Guinea said, if we don't do better teaching our own kids about God and morals, no school can do it for them. That's why there's so many. Sorry, that's why we are here. Too many people offsource morality to the system. Yeah, I mean that's
Right.
true, and
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, they're I'll repeat what they're allowed to teach and what they're allowed to say, versus what they're blocked from being allowed to say. It leads
Yeah.
one path, one direction.
Well, it's not even to say like it's a single solution, right? It's like once we
And it
put
takes
God
a
in schools,
village,
like everything changes, right? It's like that not at all. But it's
right?
like we said earlier, it's like baby steps, right? Like here's one thing we can do to limit the kind of indoctrination they're getting from a very
Right.
secular, yeah, secular and what I would deem like satanic source. So like moving like that's one step in the direction. But I think you're also right, right? I think you know, especially with the outsourcing of morality to the system, most people kind of raise their kids, let their iPads raise their kids. They don't, most parents probably aren't even going to church. If they are going to church, they're going to one that kind of just preaches very simple and shallow messages. And so there's always been this kind of watering down and subversion that's happened in the church. So I agree with like all the other side points too, which is like, it does require, it will require a large amount of cultural shift too for it to all make sense. So you got to just do things as many kind of smaller points as you can. Um, and that's why, and I agree with you too. It's kind of sad to see a lot of parents who yeah, maybe I've never even thought about these things, you know? Like, you could probably ask, like, a 36-year-old off the street right now who has 2 kids, and you go, "So, like, what do you think about, like, if something were to happen to you, like, what's gonna happen when you die?" And they, I honestly haven't really thought about it before. Or like people who are like, I'm not religious. And it's like, what are you? What is the why in your life? What kind of makes you run? Then what kind of like downstream effect does it have on your kids? Because if you're kind of just living for the here and now and they're raised up on iPads, well, then what are you going to expect their morality to be besides like what hits the dopamine the hardest? And it's super unfortunate. That's why I think it's, yeah, you're right and you're spot on where it's going to need to be more than just the schools. And I also agree that I think that you will have morally questionable people interpreting the Bible, which is why it's more important that they get it from church. So if their teachers saying something in like the book of they're in book of Matthew and they like, I actually disagree with what's happening here, the kid will at least have another source that they listen to from the pastor or their parents, hopefully too, where they
Mhm.
go, no, my parents said this about this part in Matthew. So like I think
Right.
the teacher's wrong. And that's where you kind of like that, kids will begin to be more mature in that aspect at these ages than what we see now when kids are like 18 years old and act like they're 12. And hopefully
Right.
that's the place we can move to.
And the way I envision it being in schools would be like, let's learn about Jonah, right? And then they read what's written and discuss it. Not necessarily a teacher, and then you have this conversation amongst the whole entire class that the teacher is basically leading over, but she can't or he can't change the words that they're reading, right? And then so then they have this discussion, and then hopefully, the parents would be so involved, they'd be like, "What'd you learn in school today?" And when they talk about it, well, what did you
True.
experience and what was talked about? And then if they can give their own interpretation and set whatever was said wrong straight. You know what I mean? But um, it's just a starting place, right? It's just one of those things where, um, in order to turn things in the right direction, and the left understands this, you have to start with the children. You know what I mean? And that's why
Right.
they push so hard and they allow the vile, evil things that they allow in school that we've already mentioned, and even to the next step where they're willing to start calling a student their pronouns behind their teacher's back, or use their preferred name, and even move to gender reassignment surgeries behind a parent's back. Uh, in the extreme cases, you know what I mean? Trying to get them on puberty blockers and advocate for this. And, well, I'm their friend, I'm their teacher, and I'm their friend. And of course, I
Right.
know the student better than the parents. So, and I know better. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we don't want that at all.
Well, and that's why they target it, right? They target it
Yeah.
because they know the average parent either could care less about what's going on in the kid's life, or they have a poor relationship with them, one that allows the teacher to insert themselves between the child and parent and build
Mhm.
some kind of relationship that might take obviously a form of a friendship, which is going to be more obviously your teacher's not going to punish you and give you consequences outside of the classroom. And that's why these people use that as a channel to actually go after kids. And I thought a good point was House Leotardo bringing up what group is more likely to abuse your kid more than a Catholic priest. And so there's been these charts that have been done, right? And it's like you look at like public school systems and the amount of abuse that's happened in the public school system compared to like, it's like what, like 2000 years of like Catholic church. And I'm not even Catholic myself, but you look at the comparisons and you're like, that's terrifying. And it's been a wild kind of like revelation to people, which is like our schools are that bad. Not only are your kids like being dumb and dumbed down and indoctrinated, but like they're also like rampant abuse taking place. And
Mhm.
it's because you get people who probably only went to school to be a teacher because they're like, now I can get these kids all alone. And it's like that's crazy, dude. Like we got to be very very harsh when it comes to that kind of reality. It's like you can't even I'm one of those people where it's like it's one and done. It's like you lose your teacher license, anything along those lines, like you're done, maximum sentence. You're one of the
Right.
people who are like a vanguard for the innocence of children. Go, dude. Gotta bounce. Get out of there.
Right. And typically, most public schools, they do have like multiple teachers per class. And so maybe there could be, a system set up to where it's like you have a blue-haired teacher or whatever, and then you have a teacher that actually lives a moral life, and the parents can uh, and this is an ideal scenario, right? Not even ideal, actually, it's less than ideal because the first person shouldn't be teaching kids at all. But um, parents can request, I would like my child to be in this person's class. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then they know that their teacher is actually at least a God-fearing person or willing to have prayer time. Which, thank you for the $5, King Solo Wings. I almost said King Solomon when I first read that. King Solo Wings,
Base
thank you for the
there.
$5. Having a prayer in class and after would be awesome. The rest of the time, education. Yeah, and that's another point. If you're willing to trust the teacher to teach your kid that 2 + 2 = 4, you should be willing to trust him on a certain level when it comes to Bible teachings as well. They don't have to necessarily be a pastor preaching from the pulpit to them, but reading the Bible stories, learning about Moses, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Certain stories are just stories, and that's kind of what school is. You know what I mean? They read fiction all the time, and they read history, and the Bible is essentially a history book and stories put together. So not fiction, but um,
Yeah.
there's a
I would
place
even
there's a
accept
place
that.
for it in a trust level. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Well, I was gonna say I would even accept that even if it wasn't like the center of, what kind of gets revolved around the education, but at least that it's what is proliferated in the school.
Hmm.
Even if like it's like, some teachers don't have to do it, that's fine, whatever. I would accept that. It's just like don't make it so like the ones who do are on the news and getting in trouble because they decided they wanted to pray with their classroom. It's like, but that's where it's like it's went way too far. I would prefer it to be like how you kind of laid it out too. And I think there's levels to it as well. I think obviously, especially like in kindergarten and stuff, some of those Bible stories, especially being put in like the kids' version and kind of being dumbed down, and being like, this is what happened. And then they're kind of like familiarized with it. And then obviously, as you go get older, you can have even kind of like a bit more of like in-depth classes of like, this is what this sect of Christianity believes happened in this story. This is what this sect, and maybe you can even go a little bit further detail with that. And I
Hmm.
think that it obviously doesn't have to be what is centered around everything, but even allowing it for be to like what they call those classes, like an electorate, one that
Oh
you can
yeah,
like choose to take part of, and have it count for like in a history credit or things along those lines. I think there's
yeah,
plenty of ways you could work it in. It's more so about drawing that line of like the satanic trans ideology, all that is like that's clearly evil. Get that out, like
yeah,
have that be done, and then move to a bit more of the position of like here's what the actual belief of this country has been for the last like 300 years, and allow that to exist in the classrooms in the first place.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's like it's part of English. Even if because you mentioned the electorates, which um, those start roughly in high school, maybe middle school.
Yeah.
And so you're talking like maybe the first 5, 6 years, depending on what type of a scenario you're in, you have your periods where it's like English or math for like this time frame to this time frame or whatever. Instead of reading The Great Gatsby, you know what I mean? You
Right.
read something that's actually in the Bible. You know what I mean?
Right.
That type of thing. You can read the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and compare the different perspectives because they're all four are essentially, I'm sure most of you guys know this, but it's four perspectives of the same timeline. So you get like four perspectives of what four different guys witnessed during the same timeline. So it's kind of a repeat of the story four times, uh, with little differences because of the perspective from the author, right?
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
think yeah, with English too, like the amount of literary devices, well, especially depending on like what translation you're using, you can go like King James version,
right.
and the amount of like kind of English lessons you can get just in the way that things are structured in there too. It exists there. It's definitely something you could go to outside of having to go to like The Great Gatsby or anything. But I think you can also do both.
Again, cut out Shakespeare, man. I'm sorry. I had to read
Yeah,
so much
Romeo and
stupid
Juliet and all that.
fucking
Yeah,
Shakespeare during my school like education, and it's like, dude, I mean, that was some of the worst. And you don't learn anything about that. You don't learn anything relevant.
right.
Like, how many times in school did you stop and think, like, how is this going to help me in my life? Like, what is learning this doing for me? It's just wasting time. The teacher is trying to kill time, make my life miserable. But Kenny makes a great point here. Nobody ever talks about how teachers unions protect these pervs and the perverted teachers, and they still get paid, and they can't get fired in some cases. Yeah, that's actually and TNT followed that up and said teachers unions are altogether evil. And yeah, that's one of the big problems with unions in general. They typically protect the worst worker. I was a teamster for a little while when I loaded trailers and worked for UPS when I was really young. And I remember people coming in there and you'd be loading the trailer right next to them and they would not lift a finger. And in that scenario, the supervisors aren't allowed to be union. So literally, they're not allowed to tell you to do anything. So they would come in and be like, yo, get to work. And the person next to me would be like, call the union steward down. And then it would take up in the next hour discussing what happened with the union steward instead of just loading the freaking trailer. It's just such a stupid scenario that they protect each other the way that they do. I could see how that would apply in the schools as well.
Yeah. Well, think about how many what's it called? The school board meetings. Even this is like not even on like Christian grounds. This is on like, parents would come to the school and they'd be like, hey, it turns out like I looked at what my kid was reading the other day, and it's a nonstop filled book of pictures of like, oral fellatio and all this other stuff going on, gay relationships, sexual stuff. And then the school board would be like, whoa, like, what are you doing? Stop showing that in here. Well,
right. You can't repeat that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll shut them down. And it's like, dude, you're the people housing it and then also protecting the ones who are putting it in place. It's like, you see this all the time. And even if it's not on a school board meeting.
And then the left backlash is, sorry, then the left backlash, just to your point, is they want to burn books. It's just like, no, that's not it at all. We just don't want second graders to have access to the books that, aren't rated for second graders. That's it. Simple as that.
Well, I'm of the opinion of like, if this book is all about how a kid should be transgender, I'll go burn that book. I have no problems with that. I find that stuff to be outright evil. That's why it's like, well, yeah, it has no place even here. It has no place among kids. It has no place among like adults even. You do go to those grounds of like the legality of things. Like obviously it's like not going to harm anybody. Or like I'm not going to harm anybody rather. But if it was up to me and I was dictator, I'd be like, yeah, everyone go pile those transgender books up in a pile, set fire to it, and never write one again. Because like that stuff is disgusting.
Right. Hey kids, you guys want to go viral? Let's get your phones out and go gather those books.
Yeah.
I'll go get a can of gas and we'll meet on the playground and burn them suckers.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people don't like hearing this too. And I don't want to go on a tangent too far, but House brings up a great point, which is this is actually when people refer to like the great book burnings, a lot of the stuff that was torched revolved around that same stuff. It was with the Weimar Republic. That's what they were being fed up with, was that kind of ideology being brought up. And obviously 100 years ago now, because of what 2024, 100 years ago, people people were much more closer to violence than where we are today, especially with modern technology. But people were like, yeah, dude, we're torching this stuff. We definitely don't disagree with it. But you see that stuff even today. You'll have Muslims who will post themselves gathering up Bibles and setting fire to them. You'll see the same way amongst like all the religions. That's kind of been a constant. It's like your way of like signing off your virtue of like, I torched this ideology. But I think you gotta have a base. I know for a lot of people who are a bit more not attached to Christianity, who may be just a lot secular, kind of liberal, they find that they kind of default back to that position of like, let go, let live. I forget.
Live and let live. If it's not hurting you, why does it bother you?
Right. And that's kind of like what I think a lot of people kind of default to who are secular, like less Christian based. I think even some Christians even fall to that too. But I just find that to be the wrong way to do. I think when you realize that like the satanic saying of Satanist is do what thou will, I find it to be not that different from live and let live, right? It's like do what you want. And so, everyone kind of falls on like, well, as long as you
don't stop other people either. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. As long as it doesn't violate the non-aggression principle, well, it's like, well, that's fine. Just let people do what they want. And I think there's too many consequences there, mental, spiritually, psychological, that you have to like take a into account Otherwise, it definitely will hurt people. Just because, someone didn't get punched in the face didn't mean they didn't ruin their life by getting, transgender surgery. I think
Mhm.
there's different ways you can kind of frame that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's funny the effectiveness that bullying actually has in correcting people's bad or off behavior. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not an advocate for it, but it's one of those things where you know things tend to correct themselves, self-correct in society when they're open and free, and everybody's allowed to kind of share their opinion and not fear it. Not fear the repercussions. But nowadays, you're an ist or a phobe or a whatever. Anytime you say something, like if you say being gay is a sin, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, then you hate gay people. I don't hate gay people. I love I love gay people. I'm supposed to emulate what Jesus did, and Jesus went into the worst parts of the world to save their souls, right? To reach
Yeah.
them. And so no, I it's the opposite. The fact that I'm telling you that that is wrong in the eyes of God means I care and love about you, and that actually means I care and love you more than the person that's telling you just to continue down the path. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's literally, it's like, no, I'm actually having more passion, more compassion on this person than you are, who's calling me this phobe, because you're willing to allow them to go down a dark path, and you're not willing to hear and a differing opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hate to
Well,
say that
I
I don't
think
love
Chris
gay
said it
people. I'm not
best.
that good of a person. That's what you're supposed to do, though, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. Well, it's definitely like what you should be doing, right? It's like if you truly care about somebody, you'll tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Like when you see your best friend who's like, maybe his like life is falling apart because they're doing heroin, you sit there and go like, man, like you got to stop doing this. It's like
Right.
I know that this person doesn't want to hear me say him that, or
Mhm.
know that like I'm obviously not doing heroin. It's easy for me to say, hey, don't do heroin. It's but it's something you do knowing that like they're not going to like what you say, but it's because like I truly believe it's for the betterment of yourself. This is why I'm saying something you don't want to be hearing right now. And the same thing applies with not even just homosexuality. The same thing applies with like with gluttony. You see somebody who's super overweight, and it's like, dude, it's like, especially when it's like someone who gets so super overweight super quickly, you go like, hey man, like, what's going on? Like, I think maybe you should like go work out some, or like, kind of chill out on like eating like the Twinkies every single day, because like, man, like you're not going to live very long. Let alone like it is a sin, dude. Like you should not be stuffing your face constantly, especially when it extends to like you're a father, right? And you have some fathers who like, how many times I've seen so many of these videos where like a stroller goes like running into the street, and like the big fat dad is like falling over. He can't like catch up to the stroller, and it's like
Mhm.
flying into traffic. And it's like, dude, you can't be putting yourself in a position of being entirely unable to defend your children, especially in physicality, especially as a father. I think the
Yeah.
same thing applies to women, but on other ends of like wanting to be efficient, maintaining locomotion. And it applies to all of the different sins, right? It's like you would call somebody out because it's like you're wrong. I'm not calling you out because it's like I hate you. It's like you obviously hate the sin, obviously. That's like with the perfect hatred, as it says in Psalms. But
Mhm.
you're doing it because it's like I know this is wrong, and I'm doing it because I was called by God to tell you this was wrong. It's like a public rebuke. It's like this is the purpose of why we do this. We try to hold each other accountable, and that's the whole purpose of it. And that's where we got to this position, right? It's like everyone was like, too many Christians were being too tolerant. I think that's a
Yeah.
large explanation of like what's going on. I think a lot of people who were Christian in name, who before me, allowed for a lot of this to happen because they adopted things that were outside of what Christian ideology actually teaches. They
Mhm.
adopted a bit more of like this modern sensibility aspect of like Jesus just said be nice. And I think a lot of people have become victim to that even today and right now.
Right. They wanna say, Jesus said, "Turn the other cheek," but they forget about the time where he flipped the tables or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
But,
well,
th
well, I was
go ahead.
just gonna add to that too, because I think a lot of people don't even know this too. Not only did he flip tables, Jesus tied a cord together and whipped people in that same story. Like,
Hmm.
people kind of look at Jesus as like, oh, he would never commit violence. It's like, no, like there's clearly a point in which somebody he needs to bear the consequences of what they've wrought themselves.
Mhm.
And I think that applies especially to the people who have been given much. And when he did that in the temple, it was to the people who were the Pharisees, the Sadducees. It was the people who put themselves in the position to gatekeep the religion and tell people what to do. And so when given much, much is to be expected. And so when you come in and you see your temple being treated as like a market where people are taking advantages of different things, that's when you saw him at his most angry, flipping the table, grabbing the cord, being like, get out of my temple, like, whipping him. And that's like the harsh reality of it too. This is why I have a lot of difficulty with a lot of Christians who kind of sit on that fence of, just turn the other cheek, like how Worrell had alluded to, where they kind of have only gotten really kind of one side of an idea of Christianity. They lack the rest, the whole book. And I think a lot of pastors kind of fall under that, and they're at fault for that too, because they preach kind of like feel good messages.
Unoffensively.
Yeah, unoffensively.
Unoffensively.
Right. Then at the end of the day, a lot of them want to care for like, well, if I offend my congregation, or if I start talking about, the male headship over the home, or I start talking about gluttony, these people in my congregation might not want to put tithes in the offering book, and I might be out of a position. And so again,
Right.
it's you can only serve one master, money, God, fame, put it, whatever you want to put in that category.
Right. And then Tix Bomber brings up a good point, and this is actually kind of goes to what I've said for years, is that the left are the worst kind of bullies. But he said, quote, positive bullying, aka the gaslighting of people into something they're not. The internet is playing the biggest role in perpetuating the delusion. And that's kind of what's going on, right? With and I don't know if this is how he meant it, but this is kind of like how I've described it for a while, is that, by the way that they label people a racist or whatever, all the other ists and phobes and whatever, it's a form of bullying you into doing and thinking the way that they think, and doing what they want you to do. It's not actually like that's abnormal. It's the opposite of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's you're too normal. You're a Christian. Then you're a homophobe if you say that being gay is a sin or whatever. That's a good example of it. And so that's why I've called the left the worst kind of bullies ever, because you would think on the surface, and they would tell you that they're the first people to advocate and be the anti-bullying advocate, right? But the reality is, if you don't think like them, then they're going to bully you into a corner, into obscurity, and into thinking the way that they want you to think, right? It's
Right.
I mean, just look at what they did to Lindy Lee. You guys probably don't know, but I've been referring to her a lot lately because she is a woman. She's an Asian woman who raised tens of millions of dollars for the DNC in this last election. And she's going around, she's learned since the election that Kamala Harris and the DNC knew that Kamala was losing to Trump in these polls, the polling that they use, not like the public polls, it's their own internals, right?
Yeah.
And the DNC knew that she was losing, but they wouldn't allow that message out. So here's Lindy Lee literally raising tens of millions of dollars from donors, multiple donors and whatever, to the campaign to support a winning effort. And then she comes to find out that in 3 months, they wasted $1.5 billion. And the way they spent it, Oprah, Beyonce, Al Sharpton, all these celebrities, and then not to mention whenever they traveled, they stayed in 5-star hotels, they flew private jets, they were basically living their best life on the DNC, on the Democratic voters' dime, the supporters that were putting money in the game. And so Lindy Lee is saying, this feels really dirty. The DNC did the Democrats bad. And I mean, look, you're talking about a woman, like I said, that raised tens of millions of dollars, and now they're coming out and they're calling her everything that the worst things you could call an Asian woman. They're calling her the worst things you could call a woman, period. And that's my example. That's one of my point is that they're the worst type of bullies ever, and they have no compassion, and they're quick to eat their own, right? And It's going to be really funny if they continue and Lindy Lee comes out and raises a bunch of money for a Republican in the future because she believes in making America better. And I think this is a harsh learning lesson for her because it's a path that a lot of people who have left the left have gone down in the past, and she's experiencing it right now.
Well, I think that's a good transition because I know we've probably spent a good amount of time covering, Christianity on that aspect too.
Yeah.
But I think that one thing that I like too to kind of transition off of what you had just said, right, which is kind of leaving the left. Jimmy Dore, I think, is another good example of that. Somebody who was, previously definitely a left leaning. I think he might be a bit more like left leaning libertarian than most, but obviously getting excised over his positions on COVID and kind of like seeing through a lot of the lies and just kind of getting fed up with the fact that he knew he was being lied to, and kind of like the removal of choice, the lockdowns, all of that kind of like that floated around that and that canceling. And I think that's like the broader point is I'm somebody who's like free speech absolutist. I think obviously there's like, there's different kind of nuances there with like, things like blasphemy, and obviously that goes back to Christianity. But when you look at it from the free marketplace of ideas, that's why I think that this whole kind of unity thing falls short of, where, I think that you need to get as many ideas out there as possible. May the best ideas win, and may they go only challenged so far as their actual substance, not because people don't want to hear them or because you think they need to be canceled for them, or it's like what you had just said, when the left eats their own, they cancel their own. They say, hey, you said something out of line where you're not in lockstep with the herd. You're out, you're pushed out. Where I think that's where I think the right does really good at, which is why you see people in the right wing arguing all the time. And that's more because you have a lot more individualists in the right wing who are willing to go to bat even on smaller nuanced arguments. And I think that's particularly the best route to go, because you want to always see ideas being challenged in case there was a better one that you weren't thinking of, or you come across a perspective that may be a bit more enlightening than what came before it. And that's why, and I think to kind of stretch this back to the H-1B thing, that's where I think we should go to like the Jimmy Dore aspect, right? So Jimmy Dore, covering what like a lot of people noticed in going back to the H-1B visa issue, is Trump, contradicting himself. And I think that's what most people in the base kind of saw. Now, and I think this is a great point here too, because he kind of goes into a bit of detail again on what people were seeing with the H-1B visa stuff. And I can let Wall read it, but there's also a video attached to this too. And so on. I think you're seeing a lot of people again challenging even over on small nuanced ideas, but in the best interest of what they think the American people deserve and need.
Right. So I'll read that. Before I do, I want to say welcome back, Marcus. Good to have you.
Yes, sir.
Young fam. Anyways, it says here, Trump is here's Trump completely contradicting what Vivek and I almost called him Elaine.
Elaine, that's
been watching Seinfeld lately. I signed up for Netflix the other day so that I could watch Squid Games too, and the Chiefs game on Christmas, and been watching Seinfeld. So Elaine is in there, I guess. I don't know.
That's funny.
Here's Trump completely contradicting what Vivek and Elon are currently saying about the need for foreign high-tech workers. Trump was right when he said this. 2 billionaires are pushing a false narrative that America doesn't produce enough high-tech workers. That's BS. Elon hired over 700 foreign high-tech workers at Tesla in 2023 alone. This is not about a labor shortage. It's about driving down wages. And that's just kind of why we even said recently on the show, where I said that I'd be okay with shutting down all immigration right now. But excuse me, Eric Weinstein and Steve Bannon are correctly calling this out as a false manufacturer's labor shortage concocted to suppress wages. If it's not about wages, but about bringing in the absolute best and brightest minds, then why not add a provision that foreign high-tech workers need to be paid more than their American counterparts? If they're so much smarter and brighter, then what would make sense? Oh, then that would make sense, right? But they're not proposing that because it's not about American corporations being desperate for top-tier talent. talent. It's about wage suppression and high tech workers. So, forgive me if he's about to repeat that, but sometimes you gotta set it up right.
Yeah, get all the context in them.
Yeah. Did we see the post that you sent on Alex Jones? Where did you send it, Marcus?
That's what I was looking for. I was actually scouring the Discord right now for it. I will say I have a slight idea of what he's probably alluding to. There's been a couple posts from Alex that have been very def on the entire situation at hand. One was in particular regarding like the how X is a free speech platform. And he's like literally saying that while one of his top hosts on his show got debadged and lost his check mark on X because he like disagreed with Elon, and that would be Owen Schroyer. As well as obviously like multiple of those gold checkmark organizations that had all the affiliates together with people got taken off. He's kind of he's taking a bit more of the very mainstream position when you would think Alex would be opposed to it, and I could be wrong. There could be more on that too, but I do agree. I think Alex has kind of abandoned his post. And I think that goes for a lot more than just what's happened here recently. And it's been sad to see because Alex has been one of my top people to go to, even though I don't agree with him on a lot of things. And I think he comes off pretty abrasive, for lack of better words. I still enjoy what he does. He's pretty hilarious and entertaining. But I do think Alex Jones has been compromised somewhere along the lines. I think this has to do with the fact that I believe Elon has been somebody who he put money into Alex Jones's the legal case that's been going on, as well as preventing like the Onion from buying it and like been what's the right word? So he's kind of beholden to the fact that he's not going to say anything because Elon has been putting a lot of money behind Alex Jones not completely disappearing. And so I think that's why he's found himself in the position of not truly speaking out. And I think a lot of people kind of see right through that, where they would go, any other person, any other time, Alex Jones would be saying this, and he's not right now. It has to be because, financial, he doesn't want to risk the financial assistance that he's been getting, or at least feel beholden to what he's been given.
Right. He needs what he's being given. Okay, so that's Marcus said that's what it is. Marcus, to be honest with you, I have it blocked. I don't let people post links in my descriptions, or not my descriptions, but in my, so naturally say link in the description. I'm trained my brain to say that, but in the comments, because I don't want people on my channel click a link and end up getting like a virus or sent somewhere that, because that's what people try to do. Sometimes they'll say, here, click this and check this out, and it really sends them to somewhere else. So just to protect everybody, I made it to where only I can post links in the comments. So I didn't actually see that. If you have a Discord, you're more than welcome to share, any link in the Discord, which you can join. That's in the description. Link in the description. And we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you join the Discord. But yeah, that's just one of those things. My bad. I didn't even know you sent that. Yeah, feel
free. We have a topic submission channel or text channel, in the Discord, where you can definitely feel free to come in and dump in. I will say I also do apologize. I think a lot of people have been super active in the Discord. I've been getting carried away with work. So like I've not been looking at it. I was looking at it a lot earlier when we had like 8 people in there, and now that we have like 50, I've not been very involved with that. So I apologize. I will do better at making sure I'm involved and responding to people in there. We appreciate everybody joining.
Yeah, definitely. We helped each other. We said this earlier, but we're helping each other fix syncs earlier today. For some reason, multiple people have been having sync issues. Everybody helped me with my computer last week, so we're helping each other out. And yeah, it's definitely a place where we can share these ideas and links and stuff like that, where it's off the YouTube platform essentially. But yeah, I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you there, Marcus. So let's go ahead and play this video from Jimmy Dore. And let me know if the audio is okay. I didn't test for echoing beforehand on this one.
It's beauty. So remember when Trump said this about immigration?
We're good.
For decades, this company has served the needs of American workers. It's time we had a federal government that does the same. The Buy and Hire American order I'm about to sign will help protect workers and students like those of you in the audience today. This historic action declares that the policy of our government is to aggressively promote and use American-made goods and to ensure that American labor is hired to do the job. Right now, widespread abuse in our immigration system is allowing American workers of all backgrounds to be replaced by workers brought in from other countries to fill the same job for sometimes less pay. This will stop.
Oh, really?
American workers have long called for reforms to end these visa abuses.
Okay.
And today their calls are being answered for the first time.
Okay, so they're talking about, so there he is. He's saying one thing, but now the guys that he's got surrounding him, the billionaires like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, are saying the opposite. Because Trump was saying he's going to protect American labor against visa abuses. Well, so there's this big fight online happening over the H-1B visas.
And then
that's where we are.
Yeah, and then I actually have this too. Do you know when Trump said that? Did he mention when it was that Trump said that?
All of this, so this was at the end of the primaries. So it says 2016 on that post, but this was like in March.
The one from
Remember when Trump said,
oops, sorry, the one from Jimmy Dore. Do you know
yeah,
when
the one from Jimmy Dore, this one actually happened after the one that you're about to play, when he kind of started getting more firm in his position, or it might have been one or the other. But it was late in the primaries, because I think that was a position where he knew it would risk, obviously, like the support he would have, because obviously, as we're seeing right now, a lot of billionaires, a lot of the higher up industry want to continue these programs to abuse these visas, which I will have more that we'll get into from like Jeff Younger and Eric Weinstein. But these, and we talked about it on the last show too, they suppress American wages, the way that these visas are used. And House Leotardo even pointed it out at the very beginning of our stream. Tesla right now on the database has over 1,500 open applications for H-1B visas, and every single one is a lower market wage than what the current market listing would be at any other company. So Tesla themselves is trying to hire foreigners for positions at lower wages than what the current market would dictate if an American were to take a position. And obviously, by having these visas, they would rather hire someone from the outside, bring them in to keep them in that contractual obligation that comes with the H-1B visa. And obviously, it prevents Americans from fulfilling those positions.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, it's so obvious. If they hire somebody below market value, it should be an immediate red flag, you know, that it's not for any other reason other than to drop wages. And
yeah, well, the crazy thing too, and the reason why this whole kind of argument where people are moving to like, wow, you just hate Indians, don't you? If you look at the H-1B visa breakdown of the demographics of who actually gets them, is insane. I can't remember how much is actually how many exist in total. I can't remember that figure right now. But over 75% of them are given to India for Indians. It's like if you look at like Germany, it's like 0.3%. If you look at like Spain, it's like 0.4%. And so there is a huge amount of these visas that are being given specifically to one population. And the question that people are reaching is like, is why is that? And obviously it defeats the whole purpose and a lot of what this early messaging was, which was that original MAGA spirit of like, we're going to shore up our American system, we're going to shore up our American jobs, we're going to make sure that Americans get hired at these positions, we're going to make America great again, right? This is like the kind of rhetoric. But all of this stuff that's being proposed by Vivek and Elon, which they kind of crashed out about, was no, we need to not do that. We need to, because our number one goal is like being top in AI or being number one in GDP. And it's like, yeah, but not at the cost of not hiring American workers. Like, I'd rather be number like 38 if it came with the fact of we put Americans in those jobs, not just because we wanted to gain like a 1% margin over some kind of other nation. I think that's kind of an absurd argument.
Right. And Tim Pool actually made a post that kind of agrees with you, if I remember correctly. Well, I'll put it on screen here in a second, but I wanted to play this. This was Donald Trump in 2016 on H-1B visas. Let's go ahead and just play this. It's only 25 seconds.
Well, first of all, I think, and I know.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. I forgot that does that when you got bookmarks.
Yeah.
And be very well. And well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B.
Elon, I know you're watching. You got to fix that thing. When I try to make it bigger and it goes over to the side, it's so dumb. Nobody watches. Nobody does that with X. It's not a functionable use.
Well, first of all, I think, and I know the H-1B very well, and it's something that I frankly use, and I shouldn't be allowed to use. We shouldn't have it. Very, very bad for workers. And second of all, I think it's very important to say, well, I'm a businessman, and I have to do what I have to do, and it's sitting there waiting for you, but it's very bad. It's very bad for business in terms of, it's very bad for our workers, and it's unfair for our workers, and we should end it.
It's good for businesses because it's lower wages, but it's bad for workers and it should be ended.
Right.
I don't know if that's still his opinion on it today, but
well, so
definitely.
That's been the kind of wild thing, right? Is that he's kind of been silent on this. Now, there was a New York Post article that got floated because there was somebody who reached out to him who called him on the phone, and they kind of gave a portion of that phone call. I don't believe it was the entire phone call, but it was him essentially saying like, oh yeah, like I use these visas, kind of like how we admitted to here, he uses these visas. But as far as I understand, more context is needed. I think that somebody explicitly tried planting that phone call or running that phone call one specific way, because as far as I understood it, was that he actually doesn't have the people he was talking about aren't H-1B visas. They actually would fall under J-1 visas. And it was done by an affiliate of like Rupert Murdoch. So it's just hard to tell. I think he's right now. I think Trump's waiting. I think that him giving that statement on Mike Johnson, but then saying nothing about H-1B visas right now, is him probably listening to people near him before he actually decides like where he's going to go with his actual position.
Right.
And so I think we're yet to see. I don't think he would let it slide that just the New York Post will put out an article and that's what his position is, especially for something that's been obviously more viral than the Mike Johnson situation. So I think we're yet to see like where he's going to fall on. Will he return to his 2016 position, or has he never left his 2016 position? And that's the hope of like the mega base. And I think that Newsweek article had the good headline of, you know, this issue has pitted the tech bros against the mega base. And like that's the kind of like definitional argument and schism that's happening right now.
Yeah. Donnie's saying he doesn't allow phones at the table. He's got to respect his own. It's good to have you here, Donnie, by the way.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, here's a post from Tim Pool. I'd rather have shittier American products and lesser skilled workers than foreign imports and migrants that destroy or dilute my home and my culture. It's not that hard. The argument is that our workers are this argument that our workers or products are bad, so we have to get talent elsewhere, is why we have shittier products and less capable workers. Reinvesting in America was never going to be easy, but it was always going to be worth it. And that was his response to Cernovich, is Mike Cernovich, I believe, where he said borders and culture are not artificial caps on talent. It's social cohesion. This stuff is getting really silly. And then, I think it was Tix Bomber who said it here in chat. You scroll back up. Sorry. Forgive me. I can't find it. It was, no, here it is. Donnie said it. Funny how they make the argument our ancestors immigrated here, but no one talks about assimilation anymore, which was always a key component to the American immigration.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a factor as well.
Well, I think what's crazy too is I wasn't expecting Tim to kind of say that. I think even House said Tim changed his tune overnight. I wasn't expecting Tim to take that position.
Yeah, that surprised me.
Well, like we've seen recently, right? When anybody kind of like starts really kind of counter signaling hardcore to like the mega base, like mega goes to work. And so I think there's a developing story that's kind of being slightly suppressed, but is in regards to like Vivek specifically, where I was looking into it a little bit. And again, take this all as with a grain of salt. Allegedly, I've not done my due diligence in researching it, but from what I saw, was that he filed essentially a patent for a drug for Alzheimer's that he knew wasn't going to work, and then before at least letting people who had all invested in him understand that he knew it didn't work, he sold out. And there's something along the grounds of like his mom and his brother were also assigned to this business too, that he sold out, and that's a large reason why Vivek is a billionaire. It is in regards to like this, maybe this kind of like faulty business practice. And I think too, I think House would probably know this. I think he said something similar to that too. A lot of the reason why Tesla even exists right now is because of a lot of government subsidy backing into it and pouring money into it. And even Elon, I saw a great video from a lady. I wish I would have bookmarked it. I probably did, but it's just forgot about it, where she breaks down a lot of the pathway from where Elon was in the beginning to where he is now. And a lot of it had to do with like the way he was kind of even gaming the system to get loans to leverage them, and so he could get into these positions where he's at. And that's not to take away from a lot of the good things that he's done. It's just to make note that there is a pattern between both of these individuals, that they have gamed the system in a financial sense that has benefited themselves, and then are now both the leaders of this, that are like what you had said earlier, where you had one post of Vivek saying that American culture is like they're just lazy and we're more concerned about sleepovers and having and hanging with friends than we are, doing arithmetic until midnight. And I think that follows suit with a post that Colin Rugg put out that he deleted, because he was saying that because Americans don't want to work 80-hour work weeks, this is why we lose to foreign countries. This is why immigrants are getting hired. And that, I think, even defeats the purpose of what a lot of MAGA people were behind, which was MAGA people were like, no, I want to work 40 to 50-hour work weeks and have a single income living wage off of that, and be able to take care of my kids and see my kids just like how my grandparents did before me. Right? They're alluding to the fact of like, we have been robbed of things because of what the government has done, regulation has done, and it's the exploitation that's occurred at the highest level. Now, I'm also somebody who holds a lot of that same true, where a lot of people, just because they don't want to work 80-hour work weeks, is like, no, they must not be hardworking. It's like, no, it's like they don't want to be tied to having to work that much when they're doing twice as much labor that their grandparents and their ancestors before them did in half of the amount, and still had the same kind of benefits and home. And even with that, a lot of people who are working 80 hours a week can't even buy a home right now. And so it's even further out than that. You can even probably work enough hours with some of these jobs that only pay like $18, $19 an hour, to be able to even maintain that way of life. And all of that is what leads to the fact of, because parents are out of the home at this high rate, they don't have enough time to take care of their kids. That's why you end up with what we talked about earlier, which is the outsourcing of morality. Other people end up taking care of their children. But if you don't put in that amount of time, it's like, well, there goes the home, there goes this equity. You can't put money into this. You got to cut all of this. And it's like, that's what people wanted to move to. So it was wild to see Colin Rugg kind of call people, lazy. And that's why immigrants will win, is because Americans don't want to work 80-hour work weeks. Now, he deleted the post, but I found 9mm SMG. He actually copied it and or took a screenshot of it. So that's something that we can get into as well. But I think the other main thing here is, there's a 2-minute video from Jeff Younger that talks about how, or explains a bit more of like how that kind of suppresses the wages. And that would be just underneath the Jimmy Dore one in the outline.
Okay, I see it here. I was filtering through some of my bookmarks, and I'll just put this one on the screen. But I want to acknowledge Marcus's comment here. Lauren Loomer was talking about dark enlightenment that she says Elon and the rest of the globalists believe. Do you know anything about that? I don't know anything about that, to be honest with you. I might have to look into it, but I know I don't know if this is related, but I know Elon Musk's well, maybe this isn't true, but it's probably not true, but I think I remember a story about Elon Musk's like nanny growing up saying that he opened up a portal in his bedroom when he was a kid or something like that. I don't know if that's related, but I don't know if he really did that. I doubt he really did that, but but wouldn't surprise me if they're looking for outward sources of ways to get ahead. I don't know if that's related. Like I said, I don't know about the dark enlightenment. I'd have to
Well,
look more into it.
I think with many things, once you get censored, and you know, like you're over target, and that's why you get censored, you begin to get a little bit more truthful because you're like, I must have been pretty accurate here. With Laura Loomer in particular, they're arguing that they're accusing her of doxing somebody, even though she published a public FEC filing, and she even went out of her way to, I think she like pixelate the information that she would have said was like, this is probably what would get me in trouble if like, you know, so I don't want to dox anybody. And then pointing to the fact that other people have literally posted similar FEC filings and FEC documents and reports and have had nothing happen to them. And so she thinks that it was because she said something elsewhere in opposition to Elon that they went back and retroactively were like, well, we didn't like that you posted this. And so now we're going to selectively enforce this because it's our way of escaping out and saying like, yeah, you did break the rules, and you can kind of obfuscate what was really happening there. And we haven't actually talked about the censorship very much at all. You know, I think maybe even better off we should talk about that the 12-minute video from Owen Schroyer, which I believe
Okay.
is under one of the very top beginning ones with the censorship of dissent. Because I think he's one of the best and more well balanced voices to listen to about that.
Okay, let me I did actually I saved this one from Liz Wheeler real quick before you play that. I had it on screen. Extend some grace to Elon. He's wrong about H-1B visas, but take a breath. He's brand new to the right. He's super open-minded, so this discussion may open his eyes to the truth on this. He also bought X to defeat wokeness, restored free speech, and saved America. Well, I don't know about that's a little extreme, but he helped get Trump elected, which could in turn into that or be the first step. But he did more than any other person to help Trump win. Plus, he's going to use Doge to dismantle the deep state administrate state, which no other politician has ever been able to do. If that doesn't compel you to be gracious to him on this one issue where he's incorrect on policy, then what does? Be gracious. Elon has earned it, and the left will love nothing more than the right cannibalizing Elon. And that's the last line is what kind of stuck with me, that the left would love nothing more than the right to do to Elon what the left loves to do to anybody that steps out of line, like we explained with Lindy Lee earlier. So something to keep in mind. I don't agree wholeheartedly with that statement, but it's still worth mentioning, I thought.
Well, I think there is truth in that, right? Like, I think if we were under, say Twitter it doesn't get bought by him, but it just falls to the wayside because of what was happening with the Twitter files and Twitter 1.0. I think there is truth in the fact that maybe we wouldn't have gotten a lot of what we have gotten so far. You know, specifically maybe like that one DEA a cabinet pick, right? That we find out actually after Trump picks him for the cabinet. Wait a minute, that was the guy who arrested pastors during COVID. Then you have like the pushback that happens on X. So there's other things that I think we've obviously benefited from Elon buying X, but I think it goes back again to like what I said earlier, where it's like the free market of ideas. It's like when someone's wrong, we need to let them hear about it. And I'm somebody who would personally want Elon on our side, but I think it's hard to. You get to that position though too, where when somebody is like what Elon is, not Elon, but Donnie had alluded to as well earlier, and what we haven't covered yet in depth, but I've kind of said it too. You know, he called people like subtards. He deleted posts where he was saying like, you know, calling people liars. He deleted posts where he was agreeing that the American people are retarded compared to other countries. He has that one post in particular where he literally says verbatim, like, if you like something like, you know, go fuck you in your face. I'll fight to the death on this issue. And I don't know if that's been deleted ever since. But that screenshot exists everywhere. So people are like, you don't just kind of like say these things as the man who Elon is, and don't take it with a bit of like, there's probably a deep kind of rooted way that he feels like this. And everybody's kind of like offended at that too, because it's obviously completely oppositionally, you know, against and ideologically opposed to where we are as like the party that we are. So I think that you can also have two at once, right? They're not mutually exclusive. You can go, yeah, we can be appreciative of the things that Elon has done, but when the time comes and it's like you show yourself to be that much of an enemy with that much kind of vitriol towards the people who you're supposedly siding with, when you just got here, 5-6 months ago, you voted for Joe Biden in 2020. It's like, yeah, like we need to push back. It's like, I don't care how much you've given us, again, I'll use House's argument, like you're not Jesus. Like you're not God, you're another human being. And so again, like what you say, it's a show me state. It's like, with Kansas. So I'm not at the point
Missouri,
like,
but yeah.
yeah, Missouri, my bad.
No, you're good.
But like, yeah, show me, Elon. Like, show me that like you're willing to be proven wrong on something and not wanting to censor people on your own platform because you're having an emotional response to how people are dissenting against you. And and again, I push pretty hard, but I think that's where a lot of the mega base is at too, where they weren't expecting to get slapped and spit on by Elon, and they're going, "Wait, hey, whoa, like, dude, like this is something that we actually wholeheartedly believe in." But then to see you say, fuck, he literally tweeted, fuck you in your face. I will go to war on this issue. Like it's an actual tweet from Elon. People are like, this stuff doesn't just like appear magically, right? It was like, this is like, he feels like this because I think he's got a bit more of a what's the right word, an affiliation with his company doing well than he does to the interests of the American people. And then there's some realities where like
personal vendetta.
Yeah, right.
But I see that's a good point. Marcus said, again, another big name conservative like Liz Wheeler is avoiding the censorship part of it, avoiding the things that he said. And that's, it's kind of a self-preservation type of thing where they saw how Laura Loomer got her subscriptions taken away or whatever it was, lost her blue check mark. I mean, he really knocked her account back big time. She probably got deranked in the suggestions too. To tell you the truth, I don't think I've seen many Laura Loomer posts come across my timeline over the past few days. Now that I think about it, and I'm sure that that's part of the deranking as well.
Right.
He followed up and said MAGA has been infiltrated, and it made me remember that Donald Trump didn't like Elon Musk until recently, right?
Right.
If I remember correctly, they kind of had this. I don't want to call it a rivalry, but just this kind of like disdain for each other all up until this last 6 months, maybe year. And I think that's probably when Elon was affected most by this DEI culture when they turned his son into a woman, or whatever. And so it might be more of a like that's why I said it maybe just be more of a vendetta for Elon, and he's just using what's most convenient to him to get the path of least resistance to his own personal victories and using MAGA. And they might just be using each other. You know what I mean? Trump might just be using Elon and Elon be using Trump. But, the main thing is we're not going to have Kamala Harris as our president over the next 4 years. I mean, that's a good caveat of the whatever's going on between them, right?
Right. It's who's going to benefit me most kind of thing. I think that's how most of these kind of like big donors, the big kind of corporation establishment people vote. They don't vote on anything beyond like, how does this affect my company? And I think that's what people got to keep in mind.
Okay, so you're talking about the post from Jeff Younger. Should we go ahead and play that, or do I need to read?
Yeah. So just like this small quote up there, we're saying, Elon Musk and Donald Trump now own the H-1B and opt-to-work visa issues. There's no escape from accountability. Save U.S. jobs or else. And this video is a little bit of an insight to like how it affects people. Kind of like a bit more of like one of those animated videos, only 2 minutes long.
Okay.
How messed up is our immigration system? There is a program that gives a discount to employers who don't hire Americans. The program is called Optional Practical Training, a completely Orwellian name for a program that puts foreign students and graduates into U.S. jobs that have no enforceable wage protections. Student visa holders participate because OPT allows them to stay and work in the U.S. when their student visa wouldn't. Universities love it because now they're selling not just education, but access to the U.S. labor market. And employers love it because they don't have to pay payroll taxes for OPT workers. That's about an 8% savings for every position filled through the OPT, a financial incentive from the federal government to not hire an American worker. Not surprisingly, OPT is the most popular guest worker program in the country. It costs Americans hundreds of thousands of jobs. It costs Social Security $1 billion a year, but it provides young, captive, foreign labor at a premium discount. And it was never voted on. Congress didn't create the OPT program. The program, as we know it today, was made up by the Department of Homeland Security after speaking with an industry lobbyist at a dinner party. The entire purpose of OPT is to get around the limits Congress put on guest worker programs. It's a finger in the eye of Congress. It's a finger in the eye of American workers. It's a finger in the eye of American students. It should be abolished.
Okay.
Yeah. And, House also bringing up another good point too. Elon Musk wants genius tier talent for 7-Eleven wages. What's crazy is there are literal H-1B visas that 7-Eleven has to bring in people to work for them at the gas station. So people might have noticed too, when you go to a specific gas station that may be owned, whether it's like a 7-Eleven or maybe a Marathon, I think is involved too. You notice that it's not just one Indian. It's like generally if you go in there, it'll all be Indians in there. And it is because they operate on the H-1B visas where they pay people. I think it's like they get contractually obligated. The recent one that I saw, if somebody came over here with the H-1B visa, they get paid $24,000 a year to work at a 7-Eleven, which again would be less than what if somebody was getting paid. I think it's even like $12 an hour for 40 hours a week for an entire year. So every single one on like every single one of these visas holds the wages down because they will bring in the foreign worker on a cheaper deal, cheaper contract than what an American worker would be willing to take. And then once those jobs disappear and more companies are able to get involved in the program, that's why it becomes harder and harder and harder to find a job near you, because more and more companies are allowed to opt into this program and take advantage of it to its fullest extent. So it's not even just like large companies and with the tech groups, which obviously that affects them more because they want to hire more employees, but even smaller places like 7-Eleven hire people in on like $24,000 or $20,000 a year. And if you're just hearing that too, you're like, there's no way you can survive on $20,000 a year. I think what's the average? I think the average marker is like $42,000 a year. I think it's like the average mark. It's like 43,000. So it's like half of what somebody, a regular American citizen, would need to like not fall under like the federal poverty guidelines. And so I think the entire thing is just, it's insane. It's absolutely wild.
Yeah, I don't think you could start a family on that. That's for sure.
No.
Yeah, and then the fact that they said it cost us $1 billion a year in Social Security and saves the employers 8% tax, the OPT does. That's pretty crazy. I mean,
yeah,
it goes to they're doing a pretty good. What Tix Bomber said, they're doing a pretty damn good job controlling opportunity too. Like, that is 100% right. And then I think House Leotardo said America has plenty of IQ 130 genius level people capable of engineering if it is paid as much as finance or medicine. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah. I think the crazy thing with this is you look at the fact of not only were specifically like white men specifically like avoided in like hiring practices for the last like however many years, but now you add that too where it's Americans in general on top of like the DEI practices. Everyone sits here and goes, we can agree that like all of these institutional systems have systematically over a period of time held their way against American peoples. Then you look at men in particular who have been dropping out of college at very high rates because it's the same way even in education, higher education. whether being turned down because like you might have gotten this great score in an SAT, but Duke University won't accept you because they got to fill the racial quotas. You combine all of this together and everyone goes, yeah, that's real. We can see the effects. We're getting all these downstream effects to where I think women are outpacing men in college universities at like an extremely high rate now. And then they, at the same time, they go, well, the solution for that is to call you guys retards for that happening. And instead, we're going to have to jump over American workers and hire foreigners. It's just, it's insane. And so this is going to be the, what I have on screen here is the Owen Schroyer talking in depth about the censorship that happened on X. I know TNT says it's hard to view Owen being censored on X when he's posting a blatant video on X. It's more so like the deranking of, you can see here, Owen Schroyer still does not have a check mark attached to his name. And that is because he was deranked, even though he pays for it. And same with other people. There were more than just him obviously affected by this. Some people got their check marks back. I believe Raw's Alerts and 9mm SMG got their check marks back. But there does exist a large group of people who lost it. And some accounts even outright suspended. There's a guy who had 300 followers who ratioed Elon Musk with like 40,000 likes on a post. He is still suspended right now. And he was just bringing up a point about like his son in like the tech industry, and things of that nature too. But he's obviously going to talk about, not just himself. He's trying, I would imagine he's going to talk about as a whole and give an update on the situation. So I'll go ahead and play this. I know it's 12 minutes long, but I expect him to give probably a bit more objective, balanced take on this than anybody.
Okay, and then after you play this, we're gonna do a couple fun things and then probably wrap it up. We're past 8 o'clock, so although I'm having a lot of fun. Actually, you know what? I want to after we play this, I want to show the Patrick Bet David thing and the quarter-inch kind of response, and then I got a couple fun videos I wanted to play. I was saving them for. I had a couple that I saved for like a Christmas fun show that just in case we had it, and I still want to show these. So
yeah, we're good. We can go long.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
All right, go ahead and play this. Make sure the sound's okay too. Let me know if I need to turn it up more.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Yeah, it needs to go up.
I'm going to tell you everything I know about the current phenomenon of censorship on X. Yes, that's what I said. Censorship on X. Now let's explain what's happened and how we got here quickly. And there's another issue that kind of ties into that with the discrepancies in the payouts, but that's nothing compared to what's going on now with potential mass censorship, because this feels like the beginning stages of censorship on X. It feels like early stage censorship on X. In the last, say, 48 hours, a major and important debate has broken out on X. And that is really about immigration, censoring around H-1B visas and foreign workers replacing American workers, and all the other ins and outs of that discussion and debate. It's been a very heated debate. It's been going on for the last 48 hours. Now, this is healthy. Our republic thirsts for real debate. We have been caught up in vapid discussions like transgender rights and trans kids. None of that should exist. None of that's even real. We've been caught up in just having to say basic truths like our border is wide open. And so we've been caught up in these vapid, trivial, false narrative debates, and our republic is thirsty for real debate, and we're finally getting it. This is a real debate about foreign policy and immigration, maybe the two most important issues of our time, in fact. And so we're having this debate, and then tonight there is a wave of people who have their badges and their verification check marks removed, myself included. Now, let me just tell you what I know personally from talking to other people and then with my situation. Laura Loomer seems to be the genesis of this. Go figure. And she got into it about foreign workers and immigration, specifically with Elon Musk. And then she got her badge and verification removed. Now, since then, dozens of others have, including myself. there is a direct correlation with a group that she was affiliated with, that I also happen to be affiliated with, who got entirely wiped out. All check marks and badges and verification removed from the entire group. And it appears to be just because of Laura Loomer, or the attack, or the censorship, whatever is happening to Laura Loomer. Now, I've spoken with, or I've seen, they've shared information, the leaders of this group. They have not violated any terms of service. They've not been giving any notifications of any reason for any of this. They've not missed a payment. So there's no reason why this group should have lost its badges, its verification, its premium status. Should not have happened. So it appears to be this is all about Laura Loomer. And Musk has put out statements talking about group censorship and attacking groups. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of open for interpretation. I can't really claim I understand it. He tried to clear it up with a follow-up post. Still doesn't really make sense. The people at the group I'm affiliated with that just got hit with this claim that it has nothing to do with us. So I don't know. That's open for interpretation. Maybe it plays into this. Maybe it doesn't. But it's not limited to this group. I've talked to other people, and you can go look at other people who have also lost their verification status, also lost their badge, also lost their premium account, and now it's up for review. That's all I got, by the way. I just got sent a notification from X that said my account was under review and everything was removed. Premium status, verification badge, and check mark. All removed, with just saying your account is under review. Doesn't say any violations, doesn't say anything I did, doesn't flag a post, nothing. Now, the only thing that seems to be common in all of this, the only thing that seems to be common is the individuals that got hit today were all critical of mass immigration. That seems to be the only thing common here. And I think that that's undeniable. Now, I won't assume anything at this point. I won't assume anything yet. But we can look at what's available for anybody to observe, for anybody to witness. The people who were critical tonight of mass immigration and foreign workers coming in are the ones that got hit with, you could call this light censorship. Because when you remove your premium status, your verification, check mark, your badge, you get taken down as far as priority on X is concerned. So this is a way of shadow banning. Now, I don't want to sit here and point the finger at Musk, but let's look at the possibilities here regarding Musk. Now, I don't think Musk really has the care or concern to get involved with censorship, to be quite honest. I doubt this was even brought to him, honestly. I think he's probably way too busy and just does not care enough to be censoring people. But let's look at the flip side. There is a factor. There is a, not just Laura Loomer getting into it with Musk and then her being the genesis of all this seemingly, but there is a common factor here of everybody that got their check mark and badge removed was critical of mass immigration, which of course Elon Musk is for. Now, if I was to think Musk was behind this, which I'm not saying I do, but we have to look at things practically. We're talking about a man who employs thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. And if he can employ people from foreign countries and pay them half as much for double the work, I mean, folks, we're talking hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of dollars potentially at stake here just for Elon Musk. And who knows who else could be in a similar situation, dealing with foreign workers, H-1B visas, even O-1 visas, which is just another tier, another level, but which would basically be what Musk is under, or maybe was under. But do you see what I'm saying? So follow the money. Who benefits? Well, there's a real backlash and a genuine conversation happening about foreign workers and H-1B visas. And it's a spirited debate. It's a hot debate, and it's a serious topic. And all of a sudden, the things aren't going the way that the billionaire class and the tech elite want it to go in the conversation. You snuff out the top voices. You put a chilling effect. You put fear into the speech of other people that might be critical, and then bing, the conversation isn't happening anymore, and maybe you can get your way with an outcome that will benefit you to the tunes of potentially billions of dollars. So those are the two sides of this. I'm more erring on the side that Musk probably has nothing to do with this. He's too busy. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to get involved with censorship. And there's probably other people doing this. That's what I think. But I will say, despite looking at both sides, I think that if Musk really wants to hold up X as the free speech platform, and this has been the biggest blow to X as far as free speech is concerned, I would say, since Musk has taken over, then he needs to come out with a very strong and clear statement about exactly what happened and why. Because now, if you're somebody like me that's been through the censorship era, or you're anybody else involved in getting censored on big tech platforms like formerly Twitter, then you're kind of having the same response. And maybe it's like acute PTSD where it's like, oh boy, here we go again. Here come the early phases of X censorship. And if it's all about who benefits and follow the money, then when you look at big tech, or you look at even Elon Musk personally, the outcome of H-1B visas and bringing in foreign workers to do double the work for half the money, well, there you go. There's the answer to the question. So again, it seems, just based off the pattern and time of events, that Laura Loomer was the genesis of all of this. Then the entire group she was affiliated with got knocked out, but it's not exclusive to those people. It's not exclusive to me that was affiliated with that group. There's a lot of other people that have been hit with it too. And the common factor is they've all been critical of H-1B visas and mass immigration of foreign workers coming into the country. So that's what they all have in common. And I will continue to follow this. As much information I can get, I will share with you. But I would say if this isn't corrected by the end of the day tomorrow, and if we don't get a clear statement about what happened, people are going to be very concerned. And I'm kind of already going into these mechanisms of, okay, well, what do you do when you get censored? Well, you can go always find me at owenschroyer.show. By the way, I would give you the banned.video links, but those are banned here. So in a way, InfoWars is still censored on X, but that's just like ancient ghost in the code, ancient algorithms lost in the machine that they just can't get rid of, I guess. But I can't share the direct link to my show at InfoWars still. That gets banned. I can't put it in my bio. I can't tweet it. It gets banned. So I have a new URL, owenschroyer.show. That leads you to my weekly show at InfoWars. And then you can follow me on Rumble at rumble.com/Owen. But now I'm sitting here dealing with this saying, okay, I have to go back into the things that I've learned, saying if I get lost here, you have to go to owenschroyer.show. You have to go to rumble.com/Owen. Now, again, I hope this isn't the case. I don't want to jump to any conclusions here. I hope this will be course corrected and we get an explanation. But no matter what, whatever happened tonight, which is in a way shadow banning, which is in a way censorship, that appears to have started with Loomer, then hit the group she was affiliated with, and then hit a bunch of other people that were critical of mass immigration and H-1B visas, well, then that's a dangerous either precedent or practice that we've witnessed. So it's been a crazy 48 hours on X, very lively, spirited debate about some of the most important issues of our time. And now we get this weird, strange form of shadow banning and censorship, and nobody quite knows what's going on. Very strange stuff. I'll continue to post more information here as it comes in, but hopefully we'll get an explanation from Elon Musk, the owner of this platform, who is free speech or claims to want this to be the free speech platform. Let's hope we get an explanation from him, because I think this is a big deal, especially when we've been through so much censorship in the past.
And there you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't say
And
sorry.
obviously everybody who was affected by this, you know, you're probably not seeing their post getting deranked. They're getting treated as if they have like regular posts. You know, Owen Schroyer, as well as a few other people, lost full access, right? So I mean, like, they can't even post over like the 280 character limit count. I think like Owen Schroyer can't upload a video longer than like 15 minutes or something like that. Like so all of those kind of like, you know, the paid features of like
Oh
where
yeah,
you
you lost all the paid features. Yeah.
right, exactly. Some people got theirs back. Obviously, you can see Owen Schroyer here. This is a live image right here about X. He has not gotten his back. And I think the ones who did get theirs back were the ones who weren't affiliated with the organization. So it's been everybody who was affiliated with that or had a loose affiliation with the organization that Laura Loomer came from, or is at least with on X. You know, obviously that affects like the monetization. You got to start caring about like the you're getting scared about, do I have to start doing the old ways like he alluded to, which is like have all of my backup channels ready for when like I'm gone and off this platform. I know, and I kind of agree a bit too with Marcus there, you know, and that's why I said of anybody to listen to, I think you're going to get the most balanced one from Owen, because I don't think he's going to go full on sledgehammer against Elon, especially because obviously this is a stark contrast to what we've gotten accustomed to in the last year or two. But I do think that it is him kind of like at least airing out the fact that there's possibilities that this is Elon driven entirely. Um, and and you know, it is him being, you know, like wanting to see more. Now the reality is this video was posted on December 27th, and everybody, it is December 30th right now. So Owen has not had a check mark now for, I believe this is now 4 days now. This
Dang.
went well past his moment of, you know, it better be resolved by tomorrow. So I'm
Right.
sure he's probably moved to a bit more of like someone targeted me position than where he was when he posted this video. So it's just it's a wild kind of development.
It
But
is.
again,
I
yeah,
hadn't seen that either, and his stuff usually comes across my timeline as well. And so I'm glad you're able to find that, because I totally missed that whole video. That was the first time I seen it, and I was trying to line
yeah,
up these posts here for us next, but I wanted to we'll just start with this one real quick, because I think Jack Posobiec makes a good point. Let me load up a little bit. He says, notice who was silent during all this. Notice who spoke up. It will tell you a lot. And then JD Rucker, I'm not sure who that is, to be honest with you, but got 117,000 followers. But MAGA Group 1, those who want to make the controversy over anything for influence, likes, and whatnot. Group 2, those who will avoid controversy at all costs out of fear of losing followers because they took a side. Group 3, those who have core values and stand by them unless new information changes their mind. And 4, those who see which way their favorite influencers go and hop on the bandwagon. It sounds ugly, but it's really how just about everything works. The only question is whether or not it gets so personal or people become so invested that they can't come together on things upon which they agree. And then that brings me to this post right here. I didn't have this one in line, but Samuel Culper, I have no clue who it is, but he made a good point, and I feel like it's worth sharing. He says they're playing 5D chess. I really just did that. They're playing 5D chess, and the target was always Doge, and to drive a wedge between Trump, Elon, and Vivek. It's so sad seeing so many still falling for psyops, right? And he's talking about they as in the left, and then he posted this graphic, and there's a lot of people on here. Trump has to remove Elon and Vivek off Doge. Remove Elon and Vivek from Doge immediately. Trump needs to remove Vivek and Doge. That's the only thing we can have at this point. Laura Loomer is for the citizens. Elon is for foreigners. He punished Laura for by suspending her account 12 hours. We lost trust on Doge. Remove it from the Trump agenda. More of the same, right? Remove Vivek from Doge. Donald Trump better remove Vivek and Elon from Doge. So interesting perspective. And then
I think that's like the wrong conclusion to come to. You know, it's like Doge obviously is going to be a bit more obviously like by cutting spending and government efficiency. So it's like it's going to have less to do with immigration. So maybe it is some kind of like coordinated posting being done by people to be like, yeah, let's get Elon and Vivek out of Doge. But I just don't think that just because those posts exist means that the disagreement or that the situation at hand is any less real. I do think that is the wrong conclusion to come to, is be like, oh yeah, let's burn Doge to the ground and get him out of there. because of what this is going on. I don't think that's the right thing at all. But it's a good point to be like, yeah, there is always going to be somebody taking advantage of it, especially with like bot accounts that can coordinate to make a very similar post all at once and like, have a bunch of likes that just like appear out of nowhere, and like ratio people to make it seem like the value of the system or the people in the majority is being held, even though it's a bunch of bots that are jumping on top of something to astroturf it. There's I again, I think I've seen multiple calls for this too, where people are saying like this whole thing is just that they want to drive a wedge between Elon and Trump. But I'll go back to the reality of where I think that if Trump ends up coming out and siding with Elon, then like what does that tell you, right? Like the psyop is to drive a wedge between them, then but they agree. There's still a reality in which Trump comes out and he says, after looking it over, I think I side with Elon on this and meritocracy. And there was a post where on Truth Social earlier today where he reposted something that had similar values from Elon. He took a screenshot of one of Elon's posts and then posted that on Truth Social. So then I think then that falls short, and I think really it's like it's people trying to run cover for the fact that the base is now outright being opposed by those who are at the top of it. Not to say that everything's over, but I do think there's a portion of this where it's like if this continues, dude, like we definitely might be cooked. like as Marcus was saying, like we might be cooked. Like that we should have maybe even spoke out even sooner than what we have. But it's all come very very quickly, so it is hard to take very very stark positions, because it's such a hard contrast, like I said earlier, to what we've even come accustomed to over the last year. It's been free reign, like freedom. But even Donnie and a lot of other people, in a lot of the circles that I've seen, the ones I run with, have always kind of thought there's a theory that, maybe this was a Trojan horse type deal. And that really the reason why it was so allowed to be free speech was for so long was to kind of group everybody who was silent otherwise, let them coordinate and get into groups themselves, and then wipe them off the face of the earth all at once.
We'll divide and conquer.
Right. And you do it under the guise of like, oh, well, we'll let you all out here, see who kind of forms the affiliations under a free speech kind of guideline. And this is just a theory again.
Sure.
Group them together and then boom, wipe them out all at once. And then use that cover to be like, see guys, no, we just got all the psyops out. We got all the bots out. And really it's like people like Jack Posobiec, Owen Schroyer, Chief Trumpster, Ross Alerts, all those people. And in reality, we even know these guys like aren't bots. There's actual like real values that they're holding. Forgive me, man.
You're good. I was gonna say, I saw Tix Bomber say no offense. Yeah, I know you weren't talking to me about that. You're fine. And then I've had this on the screen that Donnie says you can find him on some of Atlas's older videos on Offensively Accurate over on Atlas Thug's channel. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Donnie is the one that actually introduced me and Atlas over on X. So
yeah,
I don't think that he's welcome to join and be a part of this too. But I didn't take over Donnie's spot or anything like that.
No. Donnie left me behind. Actually, he just disappeared one day.
Yeah, he had busy stuff going on, from what I understand, or whatever. But
yeah, to be a family man.
Yeah, which is fine. But yeah, just so you guys know, I didn't want to come off like I stole Donnie's spot or something like that.
No, not at all. I think in all reality, I think that Donnie couldn't decide if I was a federal agent or not. And so in fear of like not losing his job for where he's at currently, he was like, I need to step away until I can make sure, because he's something along the lines of like, everything you're saying is a little too real to be true. So it's like, okay, let me make sure you're not a Fed trying to get me in a honeypot or something like that, which is pretty funny because I get that often. People like find it hard to believe I hold some positions, but I promise you, I'm telling you now, I'm not a federal agent.
You got to tell me if you're a cop, right?
Yeah, right.
I ask you, you got to tell me.
You think you promised.
No, but yeah, I just wanted to clarify that just for the fun of it, and yeah, you can definitely see Donnie on some of the older episodes over there, and that's my way of saying thank you, a roundabout way of saying thank you for introducing us. I really have fun doing this show, but Anyways, let's move forward here. That's the first thing they teach in Fed school: denial.
Yeah, I know.
That's
There's
what a
no
Fed would say.
there's no way around
Y'all
it.
cracking me up.
I'll have to like, well, even if I got arrested, they would be something like, they'd be like, see, no, dude, he's a plant. Like, there's like no way even getting around it. Once you see something that's like Fed like, they're like, you can't beat the allegations, as I've discovered.
It's so funny. Okay, so this one is oh, I pressed the wrong button. There we go. This is a long post by Patrick Bet David. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we'll start with this, and then I wanted to follow up with the quartering. You know, he has his own little method of calling people out and kind of trolling, and I enjoyed some of the information I learned. Yeah, yeah, TNT. I'm not going to repeat that, but you sound like that one guy. I can't think of his name, but anyways,
Ray Epps.
Patrick Bet David. Thank you. Yeah. I heard a laugh from the other room, by the way, when TNT and Yeti said that. But Patrick Bet David said, a warning to conservatives, MAGA libertarians, and independents who are happy when Trump won. The establishment, left, and the Democrats are all laughing their asses off right now. Their lazy strategy to divide and conquer worked, and Trump isn't president yet. Them pinning Trump and MAGA against Musk worked on many of you, not all, but many. Here are some things to consider. One, I never expected Trump and Musk, you or I, to agree on everything. It's impossible to do so, regardless of if you are pro HB1B or not. Two, everyone has the right to call each other out. That includes me, Musk, Trump out. That's all good. We need it. However, some do it with the intention of going viral and making claims that only divides the party. We can be respectful yet direct. Number three, would you rather us be in the situation we're in now or have Kamala in the White House? Four, what are your top three issues in order of importance that caused you to support Trump? Whatever it is, keep driving it and sharing it with everyone. Not everything is worth a civil war in the party. And I can tell you, HB1 was not even on my list, but immigration was. And I think that's the two are being conflated because they kind of it's all grouped together when it basically comes to relates to undercutting Americans' wages. And we've said this multiple times on the channel before, on the show before, but the left likes to say that we need, you know, immigrants to take these jobs because Americans don't want to work or aren't willing to work. And so who's gonna, you know, I think this is literally a quote from one of the Democrats. I can't remember. You all can remind me in chat if you remember, but it said, who's gonna pick our crops for us, right? And
He's gonna clean our toilets.
yeah. and yeah, came from a Democrat. That was me using a quote or quoting.
Clip it.
Clip it. Yeah, right. But they it's really undercutting Americans who are holding out for a better life of their own, right? It's like, you're not offering me enough to take that job. So if you want people to work, and it's a collective, it's non-organized collective of everybody agrees that what you're offering for me to do for 40 plus hours, 80 plus, 40 to 80 hours a week, since working 80-hour weeks has been a topic lately, is not worth that much. I would rather hold out for a better position. I'm holding out for a management position. Coming off of Christmas, and cousin Eddie, he's always holding out for a management position. But anyways, whenever you import somebody that's willing to work for a lower wage, you cut the American citizen off at the knees who needs a higher wage to survive and provide for their family. And so I think you conflate the two, especially when you learned that and I think I'll cut this one off, but I'll just note here at the bottom, this isn't where the community note is. I was going through Patrick Bet David's most recent post. I went all the way back to the 24th, and I didn't see the one that got community noted, so he must have taken it down, but he did copy it and post a response, which I'll get into. But where is it at? I think I have it right here. Oh wait, no.
Oh, that's a good one to go to too. That first one you had from the quartering.
Yeah, I wanted to share both of them, but I guess I had one that's, where did it go? It related to they found there was people applying for H-1B. Oh, here it is. The high-tech writer calling MAGA racist because people found H-1B applications for entry-level accounting positions and a bunch of low-paid jobs like 7-Eleven cashier. So when you're importing people to work the 7-Eleven and do these entry-level jobs in the scenarios that we explained earlier, that is exactly what illegal immigration does to us as well. It's a workaround and cutting off the American citizen at the knees, holding out for the higher wages. And so then we go over here to the quartering, and he posted, fun fact, while we're all arguing over H-1Bs, the House is set to try to cram through this Kids Online Safety Act this Wednesday. This will require effectively digital IDs to work, forcing all people who use the internet to have an ID on file with the government for safety. Okay, so doesn't sound very appealing to me. And so I hope this doesn't go through. And, if this is something that Mike Johnson supports, then excuse me, then that's another that's another red flag, right? But let's see here. Then we have this other post from the quartering, and he went and dug into Patrick Bet-David a little bit, right? And he said you couldn't find a Chex Notes graphic designer from the USA for $42,000 a year. You couldn't find Chex Notes graphic designer from USA for I got to read it in the right context, right? For $42,000 a year. This is a Valuetainment Commerce LLC H-1B salary for the year 2023. Valuetainment Commerce LLC, and that's Patrick Bet-David's company. And I like Patrick Bet-David, but I found this interesting since he's kind of thrown himself in the mix. The job title's graphic. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, like 42K. Do you think somebody who went to school for 4 years to be a graphic designer at college is going to take a position that pays $40,000 a year? That's literally no better if you wanted to go work at Honda and go put car doors on a vehicle. Like no.
If they went to a reputable university, they're coming out with $100,000 in student debt, or that they paid $100,000 up front for, which most people didn't pay up front for. So I mean, you're talking about years upon years to pay this back, and because nobody's going to just pay it back. Well, I make $41,600, so it'll take me 2.5 years to pay it back. No, that's not how that actually works. It's going to take them. Nobody's going to do that. You know what I mean? And so, I like that the quartering was able to figure this out and kind of bring this to light.
Right.
But this goes to what Trump was saying before. Like, when Trump was trying to protect his taxes the first time around, they kept saying, we got to see Trump's taxes, and he's the first president ever that never showed his taxes. And he went into that first election in 2016 saying Hillary was saying everything about his taxes, and he's like, well, I'm just using the things in place legally that y'all put there to pay less taxes. You know what I mean? He's like, you can't blame me for using the loopholes that y'all inserted. And so that's why, that kind of lends to Trump's way of thinking, where he's like, yeah, it's good for business, the HB1, but it's bad for the worker. At least he's willing to admit the truth. That's about as honest as a person can be, right? He understands like both aspects of it. And as a business owner, a smart business owner that's obligated to his business, yes, he did hire people on H-1B visas, and you see it here with Valuetainment as well. So I mean, if it's a legal thing that they can do, they're not breaking the law. Yeah, it might be bad form, it might be bad for the American worker, but it's a smart business practice if it's allowed by law. So that's where we got to go back, and we got to fix the law or rewrite this to where it's used appropriately. Which brings me to I thought I had the other one up here too. Let's see. Do I still have it?
I got the one that got community noted. Actually looks like the community note got deleted, so I'm glad the quartering took a screenshot of it.
Okay, but then that leads me to Elon Musk's reaction to the 7-Eleven cashier thing earlier. He said the H-1B program should be reserved for people who would address an important shortfall of domestic expertise. There is some degree of fraud and considerable incompetence in every government program, and H-1B is no exception. The fraud and incompetence needs to be fixed throughout the government. y'all hear that? I just went through puberty.
Episode.
So, so right here, it seems like Elon Musk thinks the H-1B should actually be changed, fixed. You know what I mean? So, then it brings me over here to this. Doesn't directly bring me over here, but Quartering posted while he was looking into Patrick Bet-David, he saw this community notes, and you said you have the post itself, so we'll show that next.
Yeah.
If you want to stage it. But this community note reads, Patrick Bet-David made his money by founding a predatory multi-level marketing pyramid scheme, which he then used to market himself as a business guru on YouTube. He is essentially a scam artist. And
well, what you'll notice there is they actually link to his literal Wikipedia page. The
Oh.
community note didn't like go out of its way to do anything crazy, but his own Wikipedia article like explains that this was his way up.
Wow. Okay. So
And
I thought he built like an insurance company and sold it, but I think he must have done multiple things.
Yeah, well, that brings me to what this post is here.
Okay, yeah, let me put that up.
So this is from Unfiltered Truth. If I can get rid of it. You see here posted here that this Wikipedia page has been nominated to be deleted. So someone went behind the scenes, an editor, and I'm going to put this on screen here. An editor has nominated this article for deletion. And, somebody who's ever posting it's probably got more access to Wikipedia than I do. So it's not even just like the whole, one aspect or an editing change on what the article may be. It's that they want the entire Wikipedia page to be deleted. And the one that got community noted was actually this one. And so it was him saying, as an immigrant from Iran, I saw this as an edge. I didn't mind working 80 hours a week, didn't mind the competition. All I wanted was a shot. This supposed to be the American way. Time to return to it. And so then he's linking back to, again, what we saw from Vivek, which we alluded to as well, which was the, I believe this is the specific post where he talks about, if I can click on it. Yeah, that American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, and talking more about like the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ, or the jock over the valedictorian, and everything that he said, kind of alluding to what he thinks is wrong about American culture, what we had talked about earlier, which is like you can see down here. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV. And again, everything kind of that speaks to turning Americans from not just a culture of enjoying entertainment, but from the culture of like a Chinese culture, right? Like moving to where everyone's entirely preoccupied with only focusing on things such as, did I get a 98 or a 99 on my math test? And not to speak to that it's overly wrong as a thing to strive towards. But the argument falls short when, I go and I say, hey, my, I saw a post earlier and I'll paraphrase it. But wow, like how shocked am I to find out that my average American neighbor is, well, quite actually average. Like, and it kind of like alluding to like the whole point of like Americans for America is like, not obviously we want to like be excellent where we are, but most people aren't going to be excellent, right? That's just like a hard reality of things. Like most people aren't going to be like the Elon Musks of the world. They'll find themselves somewhere like lower down on that totem pole. And so to say like you need to sacrifice all of it so that these companies have better people to hire from, it's just a wild take to have. And that's where I come back to the whole like, this is why it really does matter, like on the most foundational sense of like, this is why like a Christian conservative group needs to stop taking advice from secular people and like Hindus like Vivek. Like our value systems like aren't even aligned at the most basic levels. So then why are you then in turn talking to a base that is, as Trump would even deem it, the evangelicals, of all of these things that are entirely void of God? Like, it's like, where's Jesus Christ in this article? Nowhere. Can't find it. you know, I could go back and forth on a lot of these recent posts from Vivek and Elon Musk, and it's like they're not even. It's just an absurd thing, right? But it speaks to more so this kind of like what a lot of people I think take it as is like this kind of like vitriol towards the average American. And I will agree, the average American now in this current period right now generally is like fat, lazy, probably addicted to drugs. But to act like as if those aren't things that we can peel back while still also enjoying what's the word? Saturday morning cartoons is just wild, right? And I don't think that like you can have both, right? You don't need to give up Saturday morning cartoons just to be able to have engineers that can operate inside companies and get the job done. And so I think a lot of people took this as a very like an attack on American culture of itself, especially coming from Vivek Ramaswamy.
Interesting. I see we have a little question going on in chat about where did PBD even really come from? Like he kind of just Marcus brought up that he kind of just came out of nowhere. I think he came on the magazine a couple years ago, but I believe that he made the choice that he wanted to move to Florida and live like the freer life. I might have actually been during the pandemic. I'm not sure 100%. I know he's a part owner in the Yankees, and he kind of just he's an entrepreneur, and I wish I knew exactly where he got his start, but I respect where he like comes from, like in life. I believe he was either born in Iran or Lebanon, and he lived there till he was like 9 or 10. He was a Christian in a Muslim state, and so he's got some experience, like some life experience that's just hard to come by, and came to America as an entrepreneur, and I've read most of one of his books, Choose Your Enemies Wisely, and I actually have his other book, not the one that's fiction, but the other one, and in my Audible, and I'm gonna read it one of these or listen to it one of these days. But the dude's story is pretty interesting, and I got a lot of respect for him, but I know those types of dudes that they get rich off the pyramid scheme, but the way that he presents it might be different than the way the world sees it. I don't know, but I believe he actually built like an insurance company, and he made a goal that like he wanted to have 100 agents, and he just built it up like to like such a level that it had so much value that he then sold it, and then I think he's just kind of tried to dip into like anything and everything. And I think at one point he realized that MAGA was marketable. Maybe he saw the Daily Wire do it first, or he saw the success of Tim Pool or something like that. That's just me speculating, and he decided to get in on it too. He talks about how he's had moments where he's completely shut his YouTube down for months, did a total like reevaluation and multiple meetings, tons of like thought and how do we want to rebrand this, and then they come out stronger, bigger, better the next time. And so it's nice to have like a team around him and stuff like that where he can actually operate on that level. But I don't question his loyalty. I don't think he's like a grifter or anything like that. But I don't know like 100% of his like business background, and it's not really worth dragging him through the mud. But I brought this community notes up from the quartering just because it's interesting. You know what I mean? Especially to know what people were talking about and what people were saying about him and things like that. And it gives us a better, more tools in the toolbox to operate with, and to also be aware of people that might be trying to fool you, which, like I said, I don't believe that Patrick Bet David is.
Yeah. Well, I slightly disagree on a couple of things, but I do think you're right on like the quartering bringing it up. I think it would be, it's if ever, the quartering like rarely punches right. And so to see him kind of like also post this and kind of jump on this bandwagon against PBD. And again, I will say the same thing as you. Like, I don't know much about his background at all. I do think he is somebody who toes the line. I think Marcus Young put something in there earlier. I think specifically in regards to like debate, he's very selective on who he allows on his channel to actually debate specific issues. I do view him as somebody who probably cares more about maintaining a monetization, a monetization in just in general, like not really caring
Right.
much about. He'll talk to a certain extent, but he won't go so far as to like it'll put him in the limelight. If he were to
Right.
actually like platform specific people or go far into it as well. So maybe but it's funny because you talked about the whole wanting to hire 100 agents, but that's what he's being accused of, is like running a pyramid scheme. So maybe it was like he never really did insurance himself, but kind of by the way that you can build an agency. And from somebody who has their insurance license, trust
Mhm.
me, like it is a very slimy, a very, very slimy business to be in. It's very easy that you can just not ever sell insurance yourself, but build an agency and put people on under your agency. It's kind of wild, like the longer I've been into this too. And it makes a lot of money just based on what insurance companies will pay out for business. I will say that. But I think in regards to some issues like with Ben Shapiro's favorite country, right? That's one
Mhm.
example of where I think PBD would never venture, because I think he
Right.
knows it would put him in a light where he would not.
Right. He wants to
Um,
stay monetized, and so he's gonna operate within the boundaries essentially a bit or whatever. I agree with
Right.
that for sure.
Yeah.
Principled, but still, and I'm the same way. Look, I'm not gonna come out here and dedicate 8 hours a day to a demonetized channel. I couldn't live like
Right.
that. I got to pay the bills. It's a little bit different for Patrick Bet David, but
Right.
so I appreciate. I'm super appreciative of YouTube. They hold dozens of gigabytes of my videos on their platform, and then they pay me for it whenever things go well. So
Right.
I'm totally grateful for it, to be honest, for the opportunity. And it's the only place in the world that really provides that opportunity. So, I mean, I get that part of it to protect its business self-interest. And people get mad at people like, folks get mad at people like Tim Pool for for not saying the one thing. Like there was that one name that you couldn't say for a while, and I don't even remember what it is, and I'm not going to repeat it, but it was the
Yeah. It was
whistleblower's
the
name.
CIA agent. Yeah.
Yeah, if you said it, it was basically like you're done. And so there's no reason, and I think the way Tim Pool even words it was like, why would I risk everything to say like the 1% or the 0.1% that everybody already knows anyways, kind of type of thing. So
Yeah. No. Well, yeah. I have
yeah,
slight
just me.
disagreements there, but the one thing that I would point out too is and this is a side point, but also regarding like PBD. PBD saying things like our founding fathers. I
Mhm,
find that highly disrespectful for somebody who was born in Iran. Iranians did not die in the Revolutionary War. They did not die building this country. They weren't a
mhm,
part of the founding fathers. Um, and it kind of begins to be like this very deafening like inability to be objective to the deference that should be held to the men who actually did die for this country. And a lot of people take advantage of everything that they bled for. I mean, I would encourage many people to go look at the racial demographics of men who have died for this country, whether it was overseas in the endless wars, or it was the Civil War for other people's rights, or whether it
mhm,
was for the Revolutionary War, or literally any other war that could be involved in there too. Um, it was clear that there was one group of people over a lot of many others who actually bled, lost ancestors, and blood soaked the soil in this country, who actually like made it be what it was, who fought for it.
mhm,
Um, and I know a lot of people will like find that to be like, oh well, I don't, it's like there's somebody whose family's like been very heavily militarily involved from like my entire like grandfathers and grandmother, grandfather, beyond that, all in my entire lineage. It's like it's something that like it's obviously affected my family and shaped it too. Um, that I just find it offensive that when people say like our founding fathers, especially when they know like they're born in Iran, people who are born in other countries who come here, it's like, no, it's like you came here because you chose to flee your country. You didn't fight for your country. I view the same thing as Jordan Peterson.
mhm,
Jordan Peterson's, fled Canada. It's like, yeah, it's like you did what my ancestors didn't, right? Like you fled your place because you couldn't win the fight or even attempt to fight. And that's the wild thing too, is like the Revolutionary War is like that was by no means a fight that they thought they would win. Most people thought they were insane. They're like, dude, leave me alone. like I don't get me involved. Like, because if they hear you talking about this right now, they're like, I'm gonna get hung in front of the king tomorrow. So there's like a certain level of like, I actually like am proud of where I came from. And so, but that's what I hold dear because that's my upbringing, that's my background, that's where I came from. And it just sucks and it makes me feel a certain type of way to see people who have lived here for 15 years and were born elsewhere go like, yeah, I'm really proud of that too. It's like, dude, it's not the same level. It's like you can appreciate the benefits of
Right.
what we are and where we are now, but it's not even close to the same level of like being like the blood relation of what was happening on this soil. And
Yeah.
so I think like smaller differences there with PBD. You think he's a good speaker? I do. But I think ultimately, um, again, you don't want to put all your stock in money, and you don't want to end up. And I think like how that groups was designated, like the groups who see their favorite influencers and hop on the bandwagons. And this could just be me too, but I'm not in the business of like having friends in the political industry. Like I can like somebody for 1 minute, and it's like the moment. It's like you could follow some like YouTuber their entire life, and then it turns out like, oh, actually they touch kids. Well, you're instantly like, oh, f that guy. I'm the same way with like political political kind of ideological ties. Now it's not going to be that instant the same way it would be like if somebody abuses children, but it would be in the same light of like if I see a consistent pattern of you disagreeing with me, it's like, okay, you're now in a different category of like, I'm not going to just take everything that you say as like truth or like, oh, this is a great thing. It's like now there's going to be some kind of nuance involved, and we'll kind of analyze it a bit further.
Yeah, I respect that. Yeah, I do like it when people come here and they say we, they assimilate, and then they talk about we and us as far as being an American. Tom McDonald being one of those type of dudes. He's Canadian. He came here and he's more patriotic than a lot of people that are born in this country. So there's a respect, but I get 100% what you're saying about having blood and family in the game rather than just coming in and saying words. But there's only so much that people can do as well. He can't help where he came from at the same time. So at least he's saying the right things. And regardless of his past, like if he did step on a few people or whatever, I believe at least it appears his heart's in the right place. His business motivations are in the right place, and definitely has some weight as well. Let's see. I saw TNT and Just Me were saying that they love Vinny. Vinny's my guy too. I love how he turns red. He's so America first and passionate. I love when he gets his opportunity to speak in like on Piers Morgan's show. That's where you see him at his best, in my opinion. He's good on the PBD podcast as well, and the other shows that he goes on. But
Vinny Ohana.
Yeah, Oshana. Yeah, Vinny Oshana.
Yeah,
Vincent Oshana. He's a veteran. And so he's personally got skin in the game. At least I don't know where his history lies, but that's something that a person can do that kind of bridges that gap as well whenever they put their own skin on the line. But I just love how but Vinny turned TNT said Vinny turns red just waiting to talk. I love it. Just Me said me too. I see myself in him. It's so funny. He does too. I get comments when I make videos about him that, man, he needs to relax. He's gonna have an aneurysm. Marcus Young said he loves the discernment from us on this channel. Discernment will save you in the last days. Appreciate that comment. That's super nice of you to say. And that's where we're trying to be, right? I don't want to be I never want to be like put in a box, right?
Yeah.
I'll always be analyzing. But Bible says it takes 3 generations to become a citizen. Where you're from doesn't define you, doesn't define who you are or how American you can be. That's why America rocks. Yeah, that's a good point, Tex Bomber.
That's actually something I would disagree with. Same thing as like if I moved to China and I lived there for 5-10 years, there's no ounce of me that goes like I'm Chinese now.
Right. I'd always be an American.
Yeah, right. But I think holding that position is what makes America less of a nation. It kind of like waters down like what it does really mean to be an American. Because if it is just this idea, well, then like everywhere else could literally be America too if they adopted these ideas. And then what would America be?
We'll see you in the Discord there, Donnie.
Yeah, take care, Donnie. Go take care of your family. Stop leaving them behind to watch this show.
Yeah, we try to engage with the chat. Well, that's one of the main reasons why I love going live, is so that we can have a conversation and build a community. You know what I mean? And I learn a lot from you guys. So I appreciate everybody that shows up. It's amazing to me every time Really makes
Yeah.
my day.
I need a new batch of people to argue with.
Donnie said hearing that's true. And then Donnie said hearing Atlas say I'm Chinese now is the perfect time to exit.
Yeah, never.
That's good. So let's finish up. Let's read this response to the community notes from Patrick Bet David. Then I got a couple fun ones that we're gonna send us off with a good laugh. So he let me put it on the screen, I guess. He said, I appreciate the value of community notes. In fact, checking misinformation, but this particular note falls short of the platform's stated objectives. It feels more like a personal attack tied to my stance on H-1B visas, resembling the flaws of Wikipedia, where anyone can spread libel or defame someone's character. Doesn't this undermine, or anyone can spread lies or defame someone's character? Doesn't this undermine the integrity of X's commitment to fair and unbiased information? Okay, so you guys see there's already a community notes potentially going to be on here. Oh, wait. There we go. My bad. I staged yours instead of mine. I was like, why isn't it moving? Trust me, what I read was what's on the screen. But you see right here.
Got a perfect time too, because I was changing out one of my pods on this
That's funny.
thing, trying to not be a smoker as bad.
But there's a proposed community notes on this, but we'll it's not finalized yet, which is it's cool being on the inside. You get to see what people are saying on the community notes beforehand and shoot them down or whatever. But Patrick Bet David he posted this as Patrick Bet David is an immigrant from Iran. I saw this as an edge. I didn't mind working 80 hours a week. I didn't mind the competition. All I wanted was a shot. And this used to be the American way. Time to return it. Take a minute to read. And then that was his response to Vivek saying the top tech companies. So then the next one was the actual community note, which we have already read. But then this new proposed community note, let's just see what it says. Nobody on X. What's that?
They're trying to community note the post about him talking about community notes.
Yeah. They're trying to community note this actual post.
Man.
Him saying that the community notes didn't fact check him properly. And it says nobody at X has control over community notes, including Elon. Community notes can provide missing information context. They just don't correct factual errors. For a proposed note to be valid, users who have previously disagreed must agree that a note is helpful. And so that's where there's actually multiple. Wow, there's one of them says YouTuber always. Marco made a 25-minute video detailing Patrick Bet David's MLM pyramid scheme. It was posted 9 months before the debate and shares many similarities with the Wikipedia entry. There's a YouTube video to that. Community note is not a tool for personal attacks. In Elon's own post, he pointed out that it requires the agreement of contributors who will previously disagree on notes. So yeah, there's a bunch of proposed community notes, and I can say if this is helpful or not, and help to get it on there or not. But I think that
that makes me think that original note, people must have flown to that note to shoot it down, so it wasn't on there anymore.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what happened. I'm not 100% sure if trying to throw me off with this MVP talk. Everybody knows it's Patrick Mahomes, but sorry. Let's see here. I'm not sure. Actually, you know what? Let me go back to that because let's check this theory. You guys get an inside look at what my timeline looks like. Oh yeah, did you guys see this? This woman, it's kind of like the pop version of Oliver Anthony. She made a patriotic song and didn't change the lyrics after her manager suggested it, and then she got dropped from her label. And this is the song right here. It's actually called Carmageddon. I checked it out. I'm not into pop really, but I like the standing by your principles. I'm not seeing any community notes, but yeah, she's starting to get some run.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna keep scrolling because it's not helping. But I was curious if you can actually go and change an existing community note that's put up once
Yeah,
it's
if it's on there that
posted.
you disagree with, that's already been like added to it, you should be able to like write out why. You can hit like, is this note helpful? You can select why it wasn't helpful, and then you can type in like specific like links and why and references of like why it's not helpful.
Right. And Wikipedia is not a credible source of information. So if anybody's
No.
using Wikipedia as a source to prove or disprove a community note is they're off base there. So that's probably why the community note got removed. If that was the case, I thought maybe he just deleted the post, but the fact that he addressed it makes me think that he's not willing to hide it.
Right.
Jack Posobiec said that in the top comment there. Grok and community notes should not be allowed to cite Wikipedia. Yeah, that's a lot of the common. I mean, like the top 5 comments under there are saying 4 of them are saying, yeah, Wikipedia is not credible, which, you know, we already knew that. But anyways, let's check out these other ones here. Let me get these ready. I should be able to just scroll through. We're just gonna have a good laugh here to wrap up the show. First off, we're gonna start with this one. I got to play it on quiet because they're playing a song that they'll copyright us for sure. But you know that with the recent NFL celebrations going on, these guys are doing all these choreographer, you know, dances and everything. Well, this is apparently the defense for the Minnesota Vikings. I think it's the Vikings. Basically practicing and oh, let me well, yeah, they're playing the song. Okay, we gotta mute it. But this is just so cringe. I mean, these are professional athletes. just picture a song, pop song. But I mean, come on, guys. Shouldn't you be studying the playbook? We're coming down to like the last week of the season. You got playoffs on the line. This reminds me of those times where like Al Bundy, he's teaching his daughter how to do. He scored 4 touchdowns in the game, by the way. But he's teaching his daughter like sports trivia, and she gets maxed out in knowledge. Yeah, it's High School Musical. That's what it is. Now look, these guys. Maybe they're pro athletes or just getting too young for my taste, but I'm an old geezer when it comes to this stuff. But
Oh, that's funny. Oh, they like rehearsed it for the game. I see.
They were rehearsing their touchdown celebration, and it was from High School Musical. And I don't know. I just found that cringe and laugh worthy. But let's go over here. This one's funny. You might have seen this one. This one's been around for a little while, but dang it, I hate how it does that. I got one more after this. The next one had me rolling earlier.
I don't think I've seen this.
Johnny's mom has 4 children. North.
Okay, I gotta start that one over. All right, here we go.
Johnny's mom has 4 children. North, South, and East. What's the name of the 4th child?
Johnny.
No, that's incorrect. It's West.
No, it's Johnny.
No, are you dumb? It's North, South, East. What's the next one?
Or West, if you were talking about a compass.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right and you're wrong. It's West. You get Johnny's mom has 4 children. North, South, and East.
You guys noticed the beginning.
Yeah. It would have to be Johnny. Yeah.
It has to be Johnny. She's like, no, you're dumb. What are you talking about? And then this last one. Oh, that's not it. I gotta go back. This one right here. This one had me cracking up earlier today. You guys might not
You
guys might not think it's as funny as I do, but it got me. Somebody played a joke on one of these people. You know, they have a little fan right here that's blowing air into it so it stays all poofed up.
Like, what would you do though, right? You just have to die.
So funny. And then he she runs away. I think it was a girl. And every time she looks back, he's getting closer. I really think that was probably fake or staged, but it still had me laughing the way the person was reacting and not saying anything.
Yeah. I think it was if it was real, someone would be getting fought.
Right? You hear this. He's like, what? What'd you do? What are you doing? Oh my God, I'm dying. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys might not think that was funny, but I thought that was funny. And
No,
anyways, now you guys get a little taste of what I'm laughing at over here. What makes me laugh. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We went over 3 hours tonight, and I'm surprised my voice held out as well as it did, to be honest with you. See some comments in here. Rugby is better. They dance like white men. It's funny. TNT misses the 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
They didn't react for so long, it'd probably be more believable. Yeah, it takes Bomber. I figured the person would probably be like, you're killing me. What are you doing? But since they were quiet and they were just being fast, it was probably fake. But you know, we laugh at fiction all the time, right? So I'm down with it. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure if you're on X that you follow, repost this. Same thing if you're on YouTube and Rumble. Make sure that you follow the channel, subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. You know what's going on. And I see Cravern. I've never I don't recognize Cravern, so I'm glad you got the notification. So you got the notification for this and was genuinely surprised not to see a bunch of nog foolery. Well, except for that last part, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I genuinely have a great time talking to you. Thank you for everybody, to everybody who was here and participated in the conversation. Marcus Young, if you're still around, make sure you do join the Discord. That goes for the rest of you guys too. I look forward to talking to you guys there. And let's see. I wanted to thank King Solo Wings again for the $5. That's always appreciated. And with that, let everybody know where they can find you, and we'll just go ahead and get out of here.
Yep, you can find me on YouTube at Atlas Thugged. You can also find me on X at Atlas_Thugged_. Resident Christian nationalist, extreme radical, always willing to argue almost all times of the day. But appreciate everybody who was in here today. I know we went longer, but it's nice to see everybody stay here with us too.
Yeah.
And yeah, join the Discord if you haven't already. Obviously, we can find us in there. Contact us personally, or not, well, yeah, personally, but reach us personally. Christ is King, and we look forward to Wednesday.
That's right. And Tix Bomber, some of you guys that I try to read everything, just so you guys know, even if it's on his channel or my channel. And if I didn't put you on the screen, don't be mad at me. I just try to keep it moving. Last time you guys noticed, I probably got like 15 minutes behind on chat, and still working on making things better and keeping everything running smoothly. So anyways, just to finish out, Christ is King, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, I argue with my wife, TNT. That's why. That's what gives me all the practice.
Yeah. Oh, and Angry Yeti, thanks for the $2, man. Appreciate that. A pointless super chat. Well, much appreciated, sir.
Yes, thank you very much.
We'll talk to you again in the Discord.
Take care, everybody. Good night.
Night.
With war rolling Atlas Thugged, we here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast, we breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up, we won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast, where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thugged, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth. spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Draw open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street, keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar Openers podcast, where the truth meets the heat. Jar Openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar Openers podcast, where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas thugs, fearless in our release. Jar Openers podcast, where the lies will decrease.